Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham. Where's it gone? Where's the sign gone? The sign's gone. It's disappeared. I've only just noticed. Has it been gone back to the manufacturer?
No, there's a story.
Anyway, listen, 7 o'clock. It is, Tuesday the 3rd of March. And we are here for your delectation. And I'm in the company, I'm very glad to say, of Mr. Russell Quirk. Very good morning to you, Russ.
Morning.
Lots to talk about. Obviously, the Middle East scenario continues to rage. A lot of people now finally managed to find themselves onto a plane. Last night, I was amazed to find out that actually they reopened the airspace, which kind of happened by accident. Nobody really said it was going to happen. People were talking about yesterday during the day, we could probably be looking at maybe flying again on March the 9th, possibly next weekend, maybe the week after. Suddenly last night, a flight came in from the UAE into London with a load of people on it. And my own daughter, actually, who was meant to be going somewhere else, ended up going back to Dubai from where she was in Mumbai in India. So thankfully, it would appear that the airspace is as safe as it can be, because otherwise they wouldn't be allowing flights to actually go anywhere. So I'm interested to hear from anyone who's involved with this. If you've got friends out in Dubai, if you've got relatives out in Dubai, if you've got people who are letting you know what's happening with them, if it's all kind of, returning to normal. Because, of course, we're hearing this morning that there's a lot of exchange of missiles from Lebanon to Israel, from Israel to Iran as well. The action seems to have moved away from the UAE for the moment. But obviously, Dat says, shame you didn't knock that vile plate over when taking the sign down.
What do you mean? That's one of your prized possessions?
Yeah, it's one of my prized possessions. In fact, I'll tell you what, we're going to have to do this later. We've got so much post to open that we're going to try and open. In fact, you know what we should do, Pooch? Maybe what you should do is just give me some stuff that I can open on the desk, and then when I get around to it, I'll just open it. Like when Russ is talking, I'll just start opening packages.
Random.
Because we've got so much stuff. Because people keep sending me messages going, did you get my gift? And I'm like, well, I'm not sure, because there's a load of stuff here. Anyway, so we'll find out what's happened to the sign. As some of you will know, the sign hasn't been working terribly well. Well, it hasn't been working at all, actually. For the last few days, and so we are getting it fixed, but I don't know where it's gone. I miss it. I miss it, Do you have to send it back then?
Yeah, but there was a problem.
Christ!
Yeah,
I mean, there's a problem. Can we get another one made or something? Because I miss it, I really do. Anyway, Russell, how are you?
Yeah, I'm
good to see you.
Yeah. I think I dodged a bit of a Dubai bullet, didn't I? I was only there about 3 days before this kicked off.
Well, I mean, you were there during like half term, really, weren't you?
Yeah. But I've got a load of mates that are still there. And they're saying that the flights are supposed to start properly tomorrow, Wednesday. Yesterday, that flight you referred to, I think, was an Etihad flight out of Abu Dhabi.
Yes, I think it was,
But I hear rumours also of a bit of a black market for seats out of the UAE.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously they're very, very limited.
Sure.
And that those that are panicking are paying up to £5,000 for an economy class seat to get out. But I also hear, and this is again from the kind of coalface really, lots of my friends that are out there, my cousins out there at the moment, saying that actually this whole thing over the last few days, yes, obviously it was a little bit alarming on the first day when all this kicked off. And I guess it would be if there were missiles overhead and landing on top of the, I think it was, it wasn't the Four Seasons, was it? What was the?
It was the Seven-Star one, wasn't it?
The Fairmont
in the Palm, yeah.
But it was kind of collateral stuff rather than direct missile strikes. So,
I mean, I suppose it doesn't really matter if you happen to be walking down the street and something falls on you from a great height.
I guess, but of course, and I suppose understandably, I guess an explosion is an explosion, isn't it, really? Right. But the Dubai government, of course, are very, very keen indeed to make sure that there is no misinformation.
Yes.
And I guess, look, the whole Dubai thing has been built on it being safe, reliable, and, as Ed Davey pointed out yesterday, a kind of haven for tax
dodgers. Can you believe that he mentioned Isabel Oakeshott? Like, Isabel Oakeshott's the problem, not the mad mullahs in Iran.
So look, Dubai obviously want to be careful in terms of not, tarnishing the reputation of said place, and that's kind of understandable. Yeah, the Ed Davey thing, I mean, I watched that, and it's not just him, there's a whole bunch of left-wing commentators on X in particular, over the last couple of days saying, if you're a tax dodger, if you decide to go to the UAE, Dubai in particular, to avoid tax, we should abandon you.
Yes.
I mean, we shouldn't pay, we shouldn't worry about you, we shouldn't repatriate you.
They're calling it Dubai derangement syndrome, right? Let's have a look, actually, what Ed Davey had to say, the plank.
Speaker, we rightly expect our brave armed forces to protect British citizens around the world in crises like this. But that includes tax exiles like Isabel Oakeshott and washed-up old footballers who mock ordinary people who stay in the UK and pay our taxes here. So as we protect them, does the Prime Minister agree it is only right for tax exiles to start paying taxes to fund our armed forces just like the rest of us?
I mean, even actual normal commentators who would be what you might call mainstream said that was really the wrong tone. I mean, you're talking about a sort of, potential World War III situation. He's having to go Isabel Oakeshott. What's wrong with him?
May I just humbly suggest they're still British citizens, right?
Well, yeah.
We obviously have
and
an
also
obligation.
the idea that they're not paying tax is dubious anyway,
Well,
because they may well be still paying tax.
Well, they probably are, and a lot of these people will come back. I mean, they're only there because of the Labour government, a lot of them. And when they do start to come back, obviously they'll start paying tax here. A lot of them own companies over there that employ people here.
Yes.
But let's just extend the Ed Davey logic just for one sec, which is to say, if you have decided to go somewhere else and therefore not pay UK tax, you should be abandoned as a British citizen.
Yeah.
Well, should therefore, on the basis of not paying tax, should we then be abandoning asylum seekers in Britain that don't pay tax?
Yeah.
What about the unemployed that don't pay tax? What about the disabled, Ed Davey?
Well,
should
maybe we should also,
them?
how about we abandon MPs who are all getting a 5% pay rise this week because they don't pay any tax either, effectively, because the tax that they pay is provided to them by money that we give them.
Yeah.
So the tax that they pay is actually provided by the taxpayer.
Yeah, it's a really,
so you can bugger off.
It's a faulty logic, isn't it, to say
exactly.
the least. But you know what it is? It's lefty opportunism.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And they just hate anybody successful. That's the problem, isn't it? Can I just have that one again? Sorry, Pooch. Yeah. My sister pays tax, or my sister lives in Qatar and pays tax in the UK. 3 generations of our family have served in the British Army. Debt paid. Well, that's the thing. Quite a lot of people who live abroad and work either for the armed services or work for various different government departments. What are you going to say to people who work for the British Embassy in Dubai? We're just going to leave you and abandon you.
And a lot of these people,
of
course, have paid tax for decades in this country. Again, opportunism. I mean, it's a faulty logic. It's spite. It's jealousy. It's the green-eyed monster of the lefties, isn't it?
It is. There's a great, these dolls that they put out.
The AI dolls.
The AI dolls, where they had Mr. In Action Man was the best one yesterday, which was Keir Starmer. There's one here, the Ayatollah Khamenei. It's just a pair of glasses and a hat in a pile of ashes.
In a plastic box.
Death to America. Which I'm sorry to say is very funny. It
is. Bye, mate.
Also, we've got a poll, have we not? Let me just see what we've got here. Where are we? The live poll is, because we're going to be concentrating a little bit later on Bill Clinton, who was being quizzed by the old Epstein investigators in America. And we thought, and also Hillary as well. Who would be your nightmare partner? Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Peter Mandelson, or Rachel Reeves? Amazingly, Rachel Reeves is coming up top at 42%.
Really?
And she's going to be getting up later on, about 11:30 apparently this morning, Russell, to produce her kind of budget statement. Spring statement.
Yeah.
And of course, I was listening, and again, I can't believe how useless the mainstream media are in this country, right? I was listening to Times Radio on the way in, and they were talking about how, it's going to be much more difficult for Rachel Reeves to achieve what she wants to achieve now because of the worldwide rise in energy prices and oil going up in the markets. And I went, no, she'll be loving it because she'll be able to turn up today and she'll go, well, there's nothing I can do. Yeah. There's a worldwide glut of terror. Yep. People are blowing ships up in the Suez Canal. People are blowing ships up in the Straits of Hormuz. So obviously anything I do won't make any difference. So she's actually got a pass today.
She has. She's got an excuse now, particularly when it comes to energy prices. And of course, this fantasy stuff around reducing the cost of people's energy bills on an annual basis, which of course the government haven't. They can say all they like that they're discounting and reducing the cost of energy, but they're doing it from a much higher base than the one that they inherited.
Yeah, right.
So there's that. That then will contribute to inflation, which means interest rates won't drop. She will in 12 months' time use that as an excuse. But just focusing on that spring statement for a second, it's being trailed that she's going to stand up in the ultimate gaslighting kind of attempt to say how wonderful the economy is. Because she'll say...
She thinks it is.
Well, she thinks it is. And one of the big things, of course, is this thing that happened in January, which we're now seeing the data around, which is this huge recovery, if you like, in the amount of tax that comes into the exchequer. And what no one seems to have reported, again in the mainstream media, is the only reason there was a load of tax came into the Treasury in January is because of the fact that she's put taxes up so much. So if she hadn't taxed
but also January's
businesses and so on, that wouldn't have happened.
No, but also January's the month when everybody pays their tax.
Because of their tax return.
In terms of their, if you're a private individual.
But it was double versus January 24.
But they're paying an awful lot more in.
But also, I mean, look, let's hope, I'm sure my Reform colleagues will, but let's see what the Conservatives do in terms of countering her gaslighting today at the dispatch box. Unemployment is at a 10-year high. You know, the old Labour isn't working thing. I've got one of those posters at home, actually. I should bring that in next time and actually have it set up behind us.
That's a good one, that, isn't it?
GDP growth, so that's the measure of the economy in terms of how it's growing. To say it's tepid and insipid would be an understatement. The GDP of this country, the growth rate of this country is literally non-existent, particularly when you look at per capita. So the economy, what I guess you'd call the fundamentals, we're in a right state.
And it's getting worse.
Terrible mess.
I mean, it was only last week when we were told that we're going to enter into, I think, something like 5.5% unemployment, which is the highest it's been.
Now.
It's going to be 5.5, I think, very soon.
Yeah.
It's going to be the highest level of unemployment for years. We've got youth unemployment at the highest level it's been for something like 11 years.
Yep.
You know, there's literally no opportunities for anybody. There's no jobs being offered to anybody. Prices are going up. Inflation, they say, is coming down.
Well, they say it's coming down,
of course,
but
it
they,
isn't.
They inherited inflation at 2% from the Conservatives. Then it went up to nearly 5%. So they're now saying, well, from the idiocy of what we caused a year ago, it's come down. Well, you can't measure it based on your incompetence level previously.
And also,
the
just
fact
because
it's 50% higher than the Bank of England target.
And also, just because it's only gone down by, say they're claiming that inflation is running at something like 2.5%, it's still higher prices than they were this time last year.
And what's
just
driving
not going up quite as fast.
And what's driving it are food prices in particular. So the stuff that actually matters in terms of price and costs to ordinary folk in Britain, that's the stuff, particularly and energy costs now, as you say, because of Iran. That's the stuff that I'm afraid is really squeezing ordinary families.
Yeah, somebody told me that they use oil to heat their house, as a lot of people do in this country, particularly if you live in the countryside, right? Because you haven't got any access maybe to a gas line or a national sort of grid. And prices have leaped in the last sort of 2 days.
Doubled,
they've gone up something like 55, 60%.
Yeah, can someone also answer me this though? As soon as we see a spike in oil prices, bearing in mind how long it takes to get the oil out the ground, into a refinery, into a petrol tanker and into a forecourt, why is it that my local petrol station has already stuck the petrol prices up significantly in the last
funny question.
2 or 3 days?
There's a good question.
When the stuff that's in their tanks has been in there for days and weeks, way before the Iran crisis.
Also,
it doesn't work the other way either,
but also, people who are in the business of wholesale buying, and we're going to talk to Howard Cox later on from Fairful UK, people in the business of buying and selling petrol hedge it, because that's what they do. You know that, I know that. They've already bought the petrol they're selling next year at a price that they've locked in, and in a futures way, right? So the idea that they suddenly have to react because prices have gone up in the market is a complete nonsense. But complete shibboleth.
But we're drowning in these quangos and regulators, from Ofcom to Ofgem to, the Competition and Markets Authority. All these numpties that seem to exist to help the consumer in terms of, competition and regulation and making sure that the consumer's well off. What are they actually doing? Because I don't see any intervention, any regulation whereby these highly paid idiots that sit at Ofcom, Ofgem and the CMA.
On six-figure salaries, as you say.
With bonuses for seemingly non-performance. What are they actually doing for the consumer? I'd suggest that a future government should get rid of all of them.
Well, we've managed to create regulators who actually only serve the purposes of the people they're supposed to regulate, as opposed to serve the
cosy
purposes...
lunches, cosy weekends away together,
look at
maybe?
Ofwat, the water companies are all just walking all over them, dumping sewage into the sea, not worrying about it, paying them a fine. And the same with education, same with Ofgem, the power companies will do whatever they like. Couple of other things for you. Road tax will skyrocket on the 1st of April, says Steady. And there was a big conversation just about my hair, by the way, because people said that I need a haircut. I rather like the way it looks at the moment. This one from Jan. Mike, how's the great hairdresser hunt going? Have you found a travelling hairdresser to give you a trim on the show? Be a good business boost for someone. Well, actually, one of our good contacts, Rachel up north, has put me in touch with some guy called Dan, who runs a hairdressers in Oldham. And apparently he's thinking about
long
coming
way to go.
down. He's thinking about coming down to cut my hair, yeah. And
What, as you're live on the show?
Do it live on air, yeah.
So you're such a busy guy, a bit like, was it Richard Gere in Pretty Woman? So busy.
I'm not sure I want you to be aligning with Richard
You'd like to be
Gere,
Richard
to be
Gere in
honest.
Pretty Woman, wouldn't you? Yeah, so you can have it
Not
done
particularly,
on the air.
no, because I know things about Richard Gere, which
do
I
you?
can't tell you about on the air.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hold that
no,
thought.
I don't want to be Richard Gere. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, the hamster wheel's over there, that way. We've got some great dog videos for you today as well. We've also got Kelvin Mackenzie's coming in. Also, we've got a couple of other clips to play you. Shall we play the one of old Hannah Spencer? Coming down to London, right? This is the new latest MP that's found her way to Westminster. She was obviously elected in Gorton and Denton at the back end of last week. Here she is being welcomed to London by that other maniac, Carla Denyer.
Everyone with the flowers.
Let's do something a bit more serious.
Yes. We can take the flowers out now if you want. That was just, it was nice to have something.
Somebody tweeted yesterday, the new Teletubbies looks crap.
I was going to say, that's Tinky Winky and Lala. Where's Poe in the other one?
I know, absolutely right. Here she is being sworn in the chamber.
Will the member wishing to take their seat please come to the table?
What's she got on her head? Is that hair? Is that some kind of little crown?
It's like, it's like a 3-year-old's hair, isn't it?
By Almighty God, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors.
Well, that must have hurt, mustn't it?
So
Yeah,
help
must
us
swear
God.
allegiance to the king.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't have the Quran, actually. In fact, I'll say that. They didn't hear that, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, did they? All right.
Well, that's democracy for you.
Yeah. It's nice to see the Speaker of the House not away on some jolly to the Caribbean.
Yeah, she's
for a
on
change.
it. But she looked like Ronald McDonald.
I don't know what she's
dressed
wearing.
as?
I mean, surely there should be some kind of dress code in the House of Commons.
Yeah,
Right.
she's a little illuminous, isn't
It
she?
is a bit ridiculous.
But
What
did
was she writing down there,
Yeah,
by
but the
the
fact
way?
that she's had to swear allegiance to the king,
Yeah.
she must not have liked that very
I
much.
wouldn't have thought the Greens are keen on that. And as I said, I'm surprised she didn't swear on the Quran. Because that's kind of the in-house Bible, isn't it, for
Yes.
the Green Party?
Yeah, that is their religious book of choice, isn't it? As we well know.
Absolutely right. Let's have a look at what we've got here, because I promised that we'd try and open some things as we go today, because otherwise we'll never get to it. And this looks like a very nice letter. And this is from Wendy Murray. Dear Mike, one of my hobbies is making pictures and cards with diamond art. When I saw this diamond art picture of a heron, I had to make this for you. I hope this heron will continue to bring you luck with your new beginnings. There you go. Russell's very nicely holding it up. My husband Keith and I have listened to you for years, every morning without fail, and when you were off air for those few weeks, we were completely lost. Now, thankfully, you're back, and your new show just goes from strength to strength. Fantastic content, exceptional guests who now get much more airtime, great interaction with your viewers as well. I wish you all the best with your new venture, Mike, and thank you to you and your production team for everything you do, keeping us all sane in this crazy world and crazier country. Well, Russell Quirk, very much part of that, and so, Russell, thank you to you
That ain't bad.
as well.
I hope you're putting that up.
I think we should.
Very impressive one.
People are asking about the Ziggy portrait, but the Ziggy portrait's there, so I don't know.
Ziggy on the Mike Graham show sign down here.
Oh, down there. Oh, yeah, I took him home because it's been requested that I take it down to Sussex. So I'm afraid he's been half-inched from the studio because he's been required elsewhere, I'm afraid. She says, I know your herring population is growing rapidly, so please do not feel you have to put this up in your studio. I really would not be offended. No, listen, I think we will put it up. What do you think, Pooch? Yeah, we'll definitely put a nail in the wall for that.
It's literally a work of art.
It is literally a work of art.
Can we talk a little bit more about Keir Starmer's speech yesterday?
Yes, let's talk about Keir Starmer's speech yesterday.
Can we talk about that? Because I happened to be at home, watched it, appalled, grimaced.
He's so useless, isn't he?
But not just useless, but I think we're at a point now where the nation is genuinely embarrassed by their Prime Minister. I mean, he stands up and look, notwithstanding how he speaks and his kind of, nauseating nasal tone.
Yeah.
I think I counted about 11 references yesterday in that speech in the House of Commons to, it wasn't us, Gov, that kind of thing, on the basis that we didn't attack Iran, we're not part of this US thing. I mean, he has done everything he possibly can, bent over backwards to distance himself from the US action.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, this is a US action against a regime that's killed 40,000 of their own people, including beheading 16-year-old girls that have been raped.
Even if you don't care what they do to their own people, has also been at the very heart of all of the terrorism that we have suffered in the West.
Undoubtedly.
From ISIS to Hamas.
Yes, the Ayatollah Khomeini is probably the world's, I say greatest inverted commas, but the most prolific terrorist that this world has ever seen. On the basis of Hamas and the Houthi rebels and goodness knows who else that he has backed. Right. The countless lives that the West have lost at the hands of the Ayatollah Khomeini. And Keir Starmer distances himself from it, that he doesn't want to be associated at all with toppling that tyrant, helping the Iran regime return to its pre-1979 state under the Shah. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Well,
all he kept banging on about was international law. I tweeted yesterday to say, look, we want a leader in this country, not a bloody conveyancer.
No, exactly. I saw that tweet. And this is the point, because he wholeheartedly keeps going on and on and on about how international law dictates that we do this, that and the other. And it's all rubbish, because I said this last week. The main reason why he wants to make it clear that he didn't do anything with the Americans is that he's frightened of the Muslim backlash.
Yes, he wants to
it's got nothing to do with international law. It's got everything to do with the fact that he doesn't want to upset his mates in the Muslim community. And that, to me, is absolutely and utterly shameful. But I think we've got Nigel Farage on what Keir Starmer said yesterday. Have a look at this.
Good morning, everybody. This press conference was called to talk about the spring statement tomorrow and the state of the UK economy, but there are one or two rather important international and indeed national issues that I want to address right at the very beginning. Our policy towards Iran has been wrong ever since 2015, and I've said so consistently over the years. The JCPOA deal, so approved of by President Obama, the European Union, and subsequently not just the Foreign Office but Boris Johnson, has been an act of appeasement that has freed up tens of billions of dollars, much of which has been used by the Iranian regime to back terrorist organisations right across the world. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, just a few to name. There are, of course, big risks with the American actions and Israeli actions that were taken over the course of the weekend, but equally enormous risks in doing nothing, in allowing Iran to go on, funding these extremist terrorist organisations, attacking shipping, and doing everything they can to build a nuclear bomb. I do believe the American president and the Israelis are right in what they're doing, and I find the actions of our Prime Minister, or the inactions, perhaps I should say, of our Prime Minister, frankly pathetic. I think to have said to the Americans...
Yeah, Nigel Farage there talks at quite some length about how ludicrous it is that we've got this Prime Minister who is kind of apparently caught like a rabbit in the headlights, terrified of upsetting the Muslim community and therefore alienating our friends and allies in America.
Yeah, so I mean, also, I think petrified of upsetting his mate Lord Hermer, of course, who's a proper radical
who was in the Commons yesterday watching him.
Yeah, of course,
like some kind of puppet master.
Yeah, probably giving him a few signs from the back benches to tell him exactly what he should and shouldn't be saying, and whether he was delivering the right message or not. It's very, very clear to me. Nigel's absolutely right, and wasn't he statesmanlike?
Yeah, very much so.
Very, very much in comparison to our hapless Prime Minister. But he's absolutely right when it comes to this appeasement thing. And look, is it any wonder that we've got two-tier policing, two-tier justice? Is it any wonder that we've got a situation where grooming gangs are let off the hook, and so on and so on, when it's very, very clear that particularly now after Gorton and Denton and the fact that obviously the Green Party have nicked the Muslim vote effectively,
yes,
the Labour Party are now absolutely crapping themselves that they've lost probably what, apart from the unions, is the biggest block vote that they've got to ever keep them, not just in power, but in existence. And of course, that's slipping from their hands. Now, Keir Starmer's response to that is now to effectively appease the Muslim community of Britain by not doing the right thing and saying the right thing when it comes to the US action against such a tyrannical regime as Iran. I mean, it's embarrassing. And it's also, let's use the word, weak. This is the weakest of all things. To stand up and in such an embarrassing way and to effectively say, I mean, we can just paraphrase, I'm a lawyer, so therefore I'm just going to do what I think the law says rather than doing the right thing. Because I'm afraid sometimes you have to do the right thing, and also, no matter what the law says.
As a politician, you know, you are responsible for making the law, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to just assiduously kind of follow the law when you can change it. You know, and one of the things that I said yesterday in a tweet was that this is a guy who can't order a cup of tea without getting legal advice. And he thinks because he's got legal advice, everything's fine. Well, it isn't fine. That's not politics.
But he also bangs on about doing the right thing and so on. And, you know, it's interesting, isn't it, that when it comes to the law, you know, he hasn't followed the law when it comes to the grooming gangs.
No.
When he was Director of Public Prosecutions, I don't think he also followed the law when it came to the likes of Jimmy Savile, frankly, did
exactly
he?
Right.
So he tends to pick and choose, I think, what he believes he should follow.
Also, international law really doesn't exist. I mean, you know, they talk about the International Court of Justice, you know, suggesting that, you know, Israel might be committing genocide, but they're not sure. Well, who gives a damn what the International Court of Justice has to say? But you know, also, who cares?
But often the law, I'm afraid, lags behind the reality of a situation. So there probably is no law that says, OK, we all know that the Ayatollah Khamenei over the last 40 years has enacted a despicable regime on his own people and has been basically a state sponsor of terrorism. So there might not be a specific law that says, OK, you can go and take that tyrant out. But we should do it anyway to protect the Iranian people, 40,000 of them now dead on the streets, but also to protect the wider global populace. I mean, goodness knows how many people have been killed, maimed and injured by the terrorist attacks across the world over the last 40 years that have been paid for and funded by Iran. And you know, we've got this, as I say, this conveyancer standing up saying, well, we can't do anything because there's a bit of a law that my friend Herman says I can't break, and therefore all those residents, by the way, all the British military in Bahrain and Abu Dhabi, all the British residents of Dubai that effectively are now in fear of their lives and under attack by Iran, he's completely abandoned them.
Totally. How about this from the Pixie? For a millionaire, Lady Hannah Spencer has had the same clothes on for the last 7 days, even in the house. And that's very true as well. A couple of super chats, I think, for us before we play a little bit of Keir Starmer from yesterday. What have we got? Super sticker from Antonio, a red hand pointing up. Okay. Haven't seen that. Voice for England says, I love the thought of your haircut happening on air. It'd be funny to see other things going on, i.e. being measured for a suit and having a massage.
That's a whole different show.
That's a very different show. Probably not for breakfast.
And I'm not doing it.
Probably not for breakfast. No, exactly right.
I'll cut your hair though if you want.
Cindy says, Mike, heads up, I sent you a card. Looking out for that. Thank you very much indeed, Cindy. And Hev Chip says, McMurdoch, he sat in Reforms area yesterday. Any news? Not that I know of. He's still, as far as we know, an Essex MP who's independent, right?
South Basel and East Thurrock, James, he is still very much an independent. And I certainly haven't heard any rumours about him coming back to Reform. So he remains an independent, as far as I'm aware.
I've got a lot of stuff here to open. I'm going to keep opening it. I'm sorry to do this to you. This is from Kate in Suffolk. Thank you for many hours of entertainment and keeping me sane. Here's my contribution to the Heron collection. Maybe you'll consider wearing it one morning. And she's sent me a very nice Heron tie. This is the third Heron tie that I've been given. This one's actually quite...
and carp.
This is very kind of reminiscent of the 70s, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the sort of tie you'd wear in the 70s. You're probably too young to remember the 70s.
Of course. Heron and carp. That's a bit leery, isn't it? It's the sort of thing that Hannah Spencer would wear.
Heron and carp. It is actually, yeah. She'd make a trouser suit out of that, wouldn't she? I mean, that's true.
It's the same material as
yeah, absolutely right. Should we do a couple of other stories? How about the doctors, right? This is a good one.
Yes.
The junior doctors, right, are apparently so useless that they're pretending to suffer from ADHD in order to avoid working at night.
Well, we know they don't like working anyway because they've been on strike for 3 years, right? So, and they're after,
because they've only had a 56% pay rise,
and they only want another 25%, which of course is completely and utterly reasonable, isn't it? When you're already on £85,000 a year and you've got 3 Teslas in the garage. Now to try and get out of any work in between strike action, they've now apparently the amount of doctors that are now playing the mental health card. The ADHD card in particular has doubled since the pandemic. So there's now about 6,000 junior doctors on an annual basis deciding that they can't work evenings, weekends, can't do call-outs in some instances because they have got mental health issues, particularly ADHD. I mean, these guys really should reconsider their career choice, Mike, don't you think?
Well, it's almost as though you think that they were given no choice whatsoever in becoming doctors.
But what was the point?
I didn't really want to be a doctor, but somebody made me do it, and now I'm really, really unhappy doing it, and I don't really want to help the people of the country, and I don't really want to work very much.
I think they've gone through the process, they've gone through the 7 years or whatever it is of training after university, on the basis that they know they're going to earn $100,000 a year as a junior doctor.
Yes.
Then
that's just the beginning.
Reality hits, which is, no, you've actually got to do some work. You might actually have to do an 8, 9, 10-hour day. You might actually have to work a Saturday or a Sunday every now and then. And I thought, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I want
and you
the
might
money.
have to study for 7 years.
Yeah, I want the money. So let's go on strike because that will kind of stop me having to work.
Right.
And if that doesn't work, because obviously in between strikes, as I say, there is a little bit of working going on. Well, let's not do evenings. Let's not do weekends. Let's not do anything that's a little bit inconvenient. But I'm afraid I've got news for you guys. Being a doctor, being in the medical profession is by definition a little bit inconvenient. I mean, what else are we going to end up with now? Reports of doctors that have signed up that don't like the sight of blood?
Yeah, probably. I can't work Saturday because obviously, I have to go and watch Fulham. I don't understand what it is about people who think they can take a job and just decide to do it whenever they feel like doing it.
Can you imagine?
What happened to actually getting a job that involves you having to get up every morning, going to an office, working for a while, even if you don't feel great, and going home and getting paid a good amount of money for a good day's work?
Starting being a chef and saying, well, I don't want to work nights, so these kitchens are a bit hot.
Oh, I'm allergic to avocados. I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. I can't make any salad today. It's ridiculous. Kelvin Mackenzie's in the house, by the way. Very good morning to you, Kelvin. Good to see you. Let's have a quick look, shall we, at old Starmer, the harmer. Absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Here he is yesterday.
Coward.
The coward, making a statement in the House of Commons about how we absolutely had nothing to do with the attacks on Iran. Yeah, have a look.
Failed states have historically proved to be worse, so we do have to be careful.
Sir Julian Lewis.
If a missile battery in Iran was continuing to target British bases, would an airstrike against it be offensive or defensive?
Mr. Speaker, I think I've made clear the base of this. The second decision, we have authorised the US to use our bases in order to take out the ability of Iran to make those strikes. That is legal because it's a collective self-defence.
Can you imagine if he'd been in charge of the Second World War? Hitler's at the door. We'll wait until he shoots somebody before we do anything. The idea that he somehow didn't act in the first instance, but now wants to act defensively. Isn't it lucky that we haven't all been blown to smithereens?
Well, it is, wouldn't let the US use the bases, which now he will, but only under specific prescribed circumstances. Like Iran give a toss about those circumstances.
This tells you exactly why lawyers are completely and utterly thick, stupid morons.
You can imagine, let's go back to the First World War.
I'll just check the law book here.
Can you imagine the First World War when someone shouts fixed bayonets and he stops everybody and says, no, we've got to do a proper study on whether health and safety allows us to do this before we be over the top. We would have been...
might hurt someone.
We would have been absolutely annihilated within minutes if it was down to people like Starmer.
This is the thing, and he seemingly has no clue about how stupid he sounds or how ridiculous he looks.
But this is what happens when you've got a leader who's not really a leader at all, but has also got no conviction, no belief, no vision. He's got no instinct either for being a good leader. What he does is revert to type, which is being a very poor lawyer. And again, I just take you back to his record when he was Director of Public Prosecutions, which, and again, not enough has been said about this in terms of the amount of people that he left off the hook, whether it was grooming gangs or celebrities that were raping children, the Jimmy Saviles of this world or whatever. I mean, fancy putting this man in charge of making law, let alone upholding it, when he was such a terrible director of public prosecutions.
Yeah, exactly right. How about this, right? This is what he said when he was asked about the attack on the Cyprus base, all right? Because when John Healey was doing the rounds on Sunday...
He was good, wasn't he?
He was absolutely ridiculous, right? He actually said, we're fairly certain that it was a sort of accidental missile that was fired towards Cyprus. They weren't actually aiming it at Cyprus.
Yeah, that's okay then.
It just kind of somehow went towards Cyprus, even though it's 1,000 miles away from where it was first fired. Here we go. In a statement to the House of Commons, Keir Starmer said this: "It is important for me to say that our bases in Cyprus are not being used by US bombers. The security of our friends and partners in Cyprus is of critical importance, and I want to be clear the strike on Akrotiri in Cyprus was not in response to any decision we've taken. In our assessment, the drone was launched prior to our announcement." What's he talking about?
So in history...
So if a drone lands on a British Army base in Cyprus and kills some people, he's not worried about that as long as it's not his fault.
No, and also as long as the protagonist that fired that missile say, "Sorry, Gov, it was a mistake. It was a bit of an accident." No matter what the consequences of that drone strike or that missile are. Look, it's embarrassing beyond belief, isn't it? And,
totally.
It pains me that we have probably another 2 or 3 years of this idiot. Or have we?
I don't think so.
Or have we?
Surely
May
no.
the 8th, I think, as we said before, is probably the time when there's an absolute hemorrhaging of votes and of council seats against Labour.
Surely to God he can't survive that, can he?
But then, of course, we end up with Angela Rayner as probably his replacement, which, of course... From the point of view of the country is terrible. From the point of view of a reform councillor as I am, great news, because she'll be even worse.
She will be even worse. I mean, almost anyone would be even worse. Miliband now looks really, really stupid because of what's happening with the oil prices, right? Because it now, as somebody pointed out earlier, if only we're sitting on a wealth of oil and gas that we could exploit.
No, what we should do instead is let the Norwegians drill it. Let the Norwegians drill it, take it, and sell it back to us at a premium. That's what we should do.
That's a much better idea. In fact, we are doing that.
Yes.
One final question for you. Netflix is eager to play host to the BBC and other traditional broadcasters as audiences defect to streaming. This is Greg Peters, apparently, speaking for the first time since Netflix walked away from the Hollywood giant, the deal with the Hollywood giant Warner Discovery. Basically, they're saying, we will put the BBC on Netflix, right? And again,
no one watch it.
I have to quite happily blow my own trumpet here. One of the reasons for our great success, and by the way, we went through 9 million on Friday. We're nearly at 9.5 already.
It's 10 million by the end of the week.
We'll be at 10 million by the end of the week. In fact, we should have a countdown to 10 million, shouldn't we, Pooch?
Yeah,
Can we do that?
I haven't got enough to do it.
Yeah, he's quiet. He's sitting there doing nothing.
Enough to do. Well, I keep saying when you get somebody in, you've got ADHD. Yeah. Listen, when you signed up for this, you knew it was going to be bad news. Anyway, listen, Russell, great to see you.
And you, mate.
Anything else you want to mention before you disappear?
Hapless driving instructor.
In
the Times today.
This is a good story.
Remind me of this individual's name. Right,
Drunk driving instructor
Timothy
crashes
Howells.
into ditch while 4 times over the limit.
Yeah, but this is so this is Timothy
not
Howells.
funny, is it?
No, it's
Shocking.
not funny. For and look, this particular driving school read yes, on his way to work. He's actually on his way to pick up his first
That's extraordinary.
first customer of the day, and he crashes on his own into a field, which takes some doing.
He's in Wales, mind you. The good news is he was only doing 19 miles an hour.
Yeah, 19 miles an hour. But no sheep were harmed in the
Yeah.
making of this particular incident. So when breathalyzed by the police, on his way to pick up his first customer of the day for a driving lesson, was 4 times over the drink driving.
That's going some, isn't it?
Well done, Timothy Howells. I think maybe a candidate for Plank of the Week.
Yeah, I think it could well be. In fact, we'll put him on the list. Are you doing it? You could do both. Are you in it this week?
I don't know. I've been asked.
We'll
I couldn't do it last week. But,
Okay. I'll
check.
We'll maybe get you in. Yeah, keep that thought, because I'll try and make a note of it, otherwise I'll forget. Because as Pooch says, we're all very overworked here and suffering from ADHD. So
well, the winner.
It's difficult when you work with guys.
Can I just jump straight to Friday night? The winner is Keir Starmer.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be, yeah. I'm going to take some legal advice on that. I guess we should do some news, shouldn't we? Kevin Mackenzie's here. He'll be on very shortly. We've also got Howard Cox to talk to as well. We've got a whole list of great... we've got Neil Oliver coming on later on as well. Where else have we got? What else have we got? Maggie Oliver's coming on. All the Olivers are here. Who else? Brian Rose as well. We're going over to Dubai, to find out what's going on there. But it seems as though certainly flights are happening again. So we'll bring you the latest news on all of that.
Flights by missile.
As well. Yes, thank you very much indeed. But of course, only if you've taken legal advice should you get on a plane. Let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, all. Here's the news with me, Eddie Hughes. Good morning. The escalating US-Israeli conflict with Iran dominates UK headlines for the third day. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has defended his decision to keep Britain out of direct offensive strikes on Iran, while allowing US forces limited defensive use of British bases. He's faced criticism from President Trump, who expressed disappointment. A suspected Hezbollah drone struck a UK RAF base in Cyprus, causing limited damage but raising fears of wider involvement, with experts noting Britain's stretched defences after years of underinvestment. Domestically, the government announced major asylum reforms, making refugee status temporary around 30 months initially, to deter migration, sparking debate over potential breaches of international conventions. Other stories include MPs' salaries, set to rise to £110,000 by the end of this parliament, a new study showing weight loss drugs could prevent deadly heart attack complications, and Scotland becoming the first UK nation to legalise water cremations. Plus, economic ripples from the Middle East crisis are already affecting shipping insurance in the Gulf and could impact Chancellor Rachel Reeves's upcoming fiscal plans. More details unfolding as the Iran situation develops rapidly. Stay tuned. Remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Edward Hughes with the news there. Oh, look, sorry, I've got Kelvin's very kindly brought in the most expensive Pano raisins in Britain. Thank you. Would you stop bringing them in, though? Because I'm supposed to be on a diet. You know, if you keep bringing me all this food, you know, it's not going to be good.
No, but it's good for your diabetes. Though,
thank you very much indeed. How about this? I've got a gift here from Kevin.
Yep.
What does that say? Can you make that out? What is that?
Please pay your bills.
Kevin O'Sullivan.
No, it's not Kevin O'Sullivan. He couldn't afford it. I actually have no idea what that is.
Yeah, I can't make it out. Maybe Pooch can tell us.
Okay.
Pooch, what do you reckon that is? It's a badge of some kind, but I can't tell if it's a regimental badge or something like that. Is it?
It's got heron on it.
Has it? Oh, here we go. He's actually explained it. It's a naval pin badge of HMS Heron.
Oh, right.
Please wear it with pride. Thank you very much indeed. We'll check that out. Kelvin Mackenzie's here in the house, as you can see.
Thank you very much.
Very good morning to you. Good to
Morning,
see
matey.
you. Have you taken any legal advice today? Because obviously Keir Starmer can't do anything. Can't actually order a cup of tea without taking legal advice from somebody.
Yeah, that is a good point. But actually, the truth about the matter is I'm disappointed in Keir Starmer. So we're equally disappointed.
Well, I mean, I think everybody's kind of reaction to seeing Donald Trump's statement, I'm disappointed in Keir Starmer's go, you know, you think you're disappointed, you should try living here.
We've had 2 years of this crap, yeah. No, I totally agree. And this is the problem. I think you got the problem, right? We now are run by a couple of lawyers.
Yeah.
And they don't know anything. The only thing that I know that lawyers do know is they know how to charge.
Yes, they do.
Literally claiming by the minute for their bills.
Yes.
Which, by and large, I had explained to me by somebody was almost certainly a total fraud. And that you should get the deal price before you start. Don't start. And what they say about that, lawyers, is actually we can't give you the deal price because we don't know what the developments are and what your reactions are going to be. So we're going to charge you literally by the minute.
Yeah.
And in charging you by the minute, how do you know that they are being honest?
Yeah.
Now, having now seen the lawyer get to the premier position in our country about whether they're honest or not, I think he cast a shadow over the whole legal profession.
I think so. I think the answer to your proposition there, which I think is a good one, the answer is they're not honest because they can get away with murder, effectively, in terms of what they charge. I mean, anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So now we've seen a lawyer under the spotlight, be dishonest.
Yes.
What on earth are they doing when actually you're having to rely on them telling the truth about their mintage? Now, actually, a lawyer did say to me that actually he thought he was not in the game anymore, overcharging twice.
Yeah.
So if he said that he did an hour on this, actually he probably did 30 minutes or did less, because. And the good news for everybody out there is that with AI, probably the only good news about it is that it is really going to damage their proposition to you, because you may need somebody to revise what AI tell you, but you certainly don't need them to do all the create all the paperwork on contracts particularly.
I mean, that is the problem as well, because I had to engage some lawyers, as you might know, at the end of last year.
Really? Why? What happened?
Yeah, it was a little dispute that I was involved in.
An employment dispute?
An employment dispute, yes.
Yeah, right.
And they actually did give me a pretty good ballpark figure of what it might cost.
Oh, right.
And it ended up costing just about exactly what they said.
Oh, well, that's good.
Which was very kind of them. But most lawyers are in the business of law in order to avoid adhering to the law, because they try and find loopholes. This idiot Starmer seems to think that he's constantly on a search for a law that will stop him doing something. He doesn't want to do anything. He wants to find a law that says, we can't do that.
And the reason he doesn't want to do anything is because he is enormously concerned about what the effect will be when he decides to do something.
Yeah, right.
So I remember, look, I'm so old, I can remember Harold Wilson saying we won't support the US in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Right? Caused a huge row. Right. Still probably ramifications of it today. But at least he made a decision.
Yes.
So Starmer would have been smarter to do either what the Spanish Prime Minister has decided to do, which is we aren't going to allow you under any circumstances. We're not going to supply troops. We're not going to supply bases.
And then hold that position.
And then hold that position.
Yeah.
What Starmer can't do, because so he thinks that by actually kind of yes and knowing, somehow he stays on side with Trump.
But he's managed not to stay on side with Trump.
Exactly.
Trump now doesn't trust him. Trump will now not tell him anything. The Americans are now quite openly saying we've got some allies in the western part of Europe, which includes France and Germany and us, basically, who are not really our friends anymore.
That is true.
And that's awful.
And what he is actually, he is a massive fence sitter.
Yes.
Right. And I was looking up, there's some stuff you can get because he sat on the fence for so many issues that there's some special...
He's got some splinters in his backside,
there's kind of some Voltarol you can use.
Yes.
Because he's obviously clearly probably got some, rather difficult issues.
He actually speaks like somebody who is constipated, doesn't he?
Right.
So,
correct. It'd be great if we could see Starmer talking again on the Saturday and the Sunday.
Yes.
He was adopting what he thought was a serious, I am at the helm of a very difficult decision and all that crap, right? And actually, he sounded as though he was actually setting himself up for people to imitate him, so that you could become, so we could all. I have some serious news for you all.
And he talks in this halting sort of manner, which is ridiculously...
I know.
And I said the other day, he actually speaks more like a train announcer than a politician. The next train will be stopping at...
I have some serious news. No, well, actually, this morning, I have some... It would have been correct.
Yeah.
I have some serious news for you.
Well, listen, we've got
6:36 has been cancelled, which it had been.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Heidi Alexander, if you're watching this show, first of all, you're fired, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, can they stop telling us how they've frozen the train fares, by the way? I went down to Sussex on Friday.
Yeah.
27 quid single to go on a journey which takes about an hour and 10 minutes and didn't actually reach its destination because there was a replacement bus service at the other end.
That is a shocker.
Right?
When you hear
27 quid.
When you hear the words replacement bus service, you now know that your journey is going to be increased by about 12 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Why? They're supposed to be in the trains business.
No, I know.
Right? We're not in the bus business. No. If we wanted to catch a bus, we would have caught a bus.
Exactly.
We want to catch a train.
It's ridiculous. Howard Cox is here from Fair Fuel UK. Howard's got plenty to say to us this morning about what's going on with the price of petrol. Howard, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, mate. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I can't shut Kelvin up. You see, he comes in, and it's hard to get him to stop talking.
You'd have thought this was a talk station, wouldn't you? No talk station.
I've been in many a green room with Kelvin. I'm sorry to say, he's probably forgotten me already, but I remember him very well.
Here's a question for you, right? And this was put to me earlier by one of the listeners. Given the fact that most sort of petrol stations and petrol wholesalers, you would say, have probably hedged their bets on the future price of petrol and oil and all the rest of it, why is it that whenever there's a suggestion that petrol prices might go up, they go up immediately in the petrol station, despite the fact that they're selling petrol which they bought ages ago for a lot less money?
Well, it's rocket and feather. We've been talking about this for 16 years, Mike, you and I, on this sort of thing. It's opportunistic profiteering in the fuel supply chain. They're not checked. I worked with Claire Coutinho when she was the Minister of Energy, when the Tories, you remember the Tories, they were in government.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I worked with them. We introduced a thing called Pump Watch. The idea was to actually monitor the opportunistic profiteering and prevent it happening. And the Labour people in the last 18 months have promised me they're going to introduce it and actually penalise the fuel supply chain. I want them to profiteer. I've got no problem about that, but that not at the expense of drivers. And what we're seeing now with oil today hitting $80, which has gone up 13%, that sort of thing, and it's likely to hit $100 in the next 2 weeks. We're going to see something like 10 to 20p increase at the pumps per litre. And so an average family car, you're looking at something like anywhere between sort of £6 to £7 up to £12 increase. And that, what's that doing for growth, Rachel Thies, for God's sake? And she's speaking today, as you know, in her financial statement, whatever she's going to say, but we're calling on her to freeze fuel duty for the lifetime of this Parliament.
Yeah, well, exactly right. And presumably, we won't see it come back down again for some time because, we are now so over-reliant on fuel from overseas that we have no control over it. As somebody else pointed out today, if only we were sitting on a wealth of oil and gas that we could drill for our own purposes.
Well, we should drill, baby, drill. That's what we should be doing. We've got fracking, we've got massive oil. Kelvin just said about Norway, or I think it was Russell, about Norway, that, they're drilling it out where we are. We've got oil fields and then sending it back to us. So all that sort of thing. But one of the things is the Strait of Hormuz, is closed now, and 20% of the oil supplies comes through there. And we've just seen the Aramco refinery blown up in Saudi Arabia. And they're also seeing insurance to hire a tanker to going from the Middle East to China is now nearly £500,000 just to hire the tanker, let alone to insure it. So we're looking at a situation where all that's happening is that pump price is going to rocket. And as you quite rightly say, they won't come down for the foreseeable future.
No, exactly right. I mean, this is the problem, Kelvin, isn't it? That you've got this business of kind of pirate pricing on petrol. And it's not.
The reality is that nobody knows, do they? Well, if I look at the petrol prices, I have no idea whether I'm getting good value or bad value. Whereas if I go to a supermarket and I think, the old pan au raisins look a bit expensive, I needn't bother to buy them.
Yeah, right.
But I don't really have a choice. So unfortunately, this is clearly an argument for electric cars, is it not? Because you could say we won't. I'm not taking this. I'm not taking it up. I'm just saying this will be helpful to the argument that we shouldn't have to rely on foreign suppliers who may not have our best interests at heart.
But the problem with that is, though, electricity prices are going to go through the roof as well, aren't they? Because electricity is now in short supply. We haven't got enough of it, and if we did have an entirely kind of electric car fleet in this country, we'd run out of electricity, wouldn't we, Howard?
You're absolutely right. I mean, bear in mind, most of the electricity is generated by fossil fuels in the first place. You've got to realise that that's the sort of catch-22 we're in. And one of the things that, you're right about the supermarkets. See, this is the point. There's only 6 refineries in this country, and all of the forecourts, all of the major brands, etc., and the supermarkets get it from the same refineries. And yet Costco can charge 25p less for diesel than BP and Shell. Go figure. That's what is happening. It's just not fair. If you bought a pint of milk from Costco and a pint of milk from BP, it'd be virtually the same. for some reason, fuel is manipulated in such a way for profiteering. And BP, Shell, and Esso are ripping off the motorists big time. So I recommend people to go to supermarkets. The quality of the fuel is just as good, and Costco's is the cheapest of all. But there's only about 20 Costco's in the country, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I go to I was in Costco on Sunday actually. And if
you went buy one of those big jars of coffee, were you?
No, I tell you what, I did buy. I tell you what, I did buy, and it's not the subject for breakfast really, but they do loo rolls at literally half price there, and so if,
do you know what?
I love going to Costco. It is the greatest moment of my week going there and buying stuff that I know for certain actually. Is likely to outlast me.
Yes.
Right? It is a fantastic...
But whenever there's this sort of thing like this is currently been going on in the Middle East, you can tell, you can see the signs. People start going to the shops, buying pasta, buying toilet roll. I don't know why they buy pasta, toilet roll.
But you do know why they buy toilet rolls.
I do know why they buy toilet roll. Although, I'll tell you what, during COVID, when everyone sort of used to run out of stuff, and I'm sorry to slightly take us off the subject here, Howard, but in my street there's a sort of convenience store run by an Indian guy, and next door is a laundrette, right? And the laundrette, I went in there to get my shirts cleaned or something for one reason or another, and it was packed, literally stacked floor to ceiling with toilet paper. This guy had obviously been going to Costco and literally buying thousands and thousands of rolls, and then he was selling them for about 10 quid a go.
And I tell you what, he would be making a lot more money than he would out of your shirts.
Yeah, he would have been, yeah, absolutely right. But the point is that it's not always just ordinary people who are buying this stuff like you. It's sort of, shop owners.
I'm not an ordinary person.
I'm sorry, my apologies.
Sorry,
but, it's not punters, shall we say.
Yeah.
It's actually business people who are buying up all this stuff and
well,
flogging
in
it for
Costco,
twice the
that's
cost.
exactly the reason that they're doing it. There'll be a lot of small shop proprietors who are doing rather well. But taking the point, I agree with you about petrol. My one doesn't do petrol, but all the other stuff that they do is the most phenomenal value.
Right.
But and could I just say, get yourself stuck into if you can't. If you haven't got a house big enough for their loo rolls, then go in for the smoked salmon. Oh, the smoked salmon. There's yards of it.
Yeah. One serious question, Howard. I mean, is there a possibility, if this continues, if the problem in the Gulf continues with tankers not being able to move and the cost of insuring them being so prohibitive, could there be a petrol shortage?
Yeah, well, of course, there's going to be run. I was accused by Ruth Cadbury yesterday, and she's chairman of the Transport Select Committee, of being irresponsible for encouraging people to fill up before the prices go up. And I'm sorry to say, I'm not going to be influencing anything. People watching your show and watching the television and reading the papers, and they'll be filling up. So there will be a run and people queuing up in garages. It's going to happen. It's the usual thing. And Ruth Cadbury is quite happy to prevent people doing that in order for them to pay more in the next coming weeks. And also, the 5p increase in fuel duty coming in autumn. And as you know, Fairfield UK, and you've known me for a long time. We managed to keep fuel duty frozen for 15 years, and I work very closely with Kelvin's paper, The Sun, on that issue. And what's going to happen? All I can say to you is that there will be some conflicts at the pumps. I'm afraid, people queuing and rushing in, and maybe even some rationing.
Well, isn't it for the MPs to tell you not to alarm anyone and try and save a bit of money, because they're all getting a 5% pay increase this week. Thanks very much indeed. And nobody really knows why, other than that. And of course, the great thing about the MPs is they always say, well, it's nothing to do with us. It's awarded to us by this independent committee over there.
Who, by the way, we've told the chairman, either it's 5% or you're out.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, right, okay.
Exactly. I mean, people are really angry about that, actually, Howard. And it's quite right to say that people who are now in the private sector are being squeezed more and more in order to pay more to people in the bleeding public sector. We've got a story today about doctors who apparently now don't want to work at the weekend, so they're all claiming they've got ADHD.
Oh, poor sausages. Oh, I feel for them. It's terrible. But going back to the private sector issue, I mean, the whole thing about the logistics industry, they're going to be penalised like mad. And the impact on inflation is going to be phenomenal. With it going up 5p, I predict, in the next week, maybe even sooner than that, you're going to see inflation going up by about 0.3%, 0.4%. And if it goes up to 10p and 20p area, you're looking, it's going to be over 1% increase in inflation. Because as we know, inflation actually is so sensitive to pump prices.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm afraid, what's she going to say today? What is, Rachel Thies going to say today in her spring statement? What is she going to say that she's going to motivate the economy? I think she's absolutely she's onto a hiding to nothing today.
Well, I was saying this earlier, Howard, that, fascinating to see how deliberately useless the media is in this country. I was listening to Times Radio, and our good friend Stig Abel this morning on the way in, right?
Stig
Abel. He was saying, Stig Unable, as we like to call him, and he was saying, oh, well, of course, it's going to be very difficult for Rachel Reeves today because of what's going on in the Gulf, and, she's not going to be able to get her targets organised, and she's not going to be able to, make the savings that she wanted. And I'm thinking, are you completely and utterly deluded? She's going to love this because she can walk up there and go,
and hide behind
I've got nothing to do with any of this. It's all gone horribly wrong because Donald Trump has attacked Iran, and therefore I've got no control over the economy anymore, and none of it's my fault.
Well, she could come back and simply say, I'm going to cut fuel duty, even for 3 months, by 20 pence. And that would compensate for all the problems for people. That would help the economy, keep inflation low, and the whole of the industry will thank her, especially the private industry that relies so much on transport costs, which are rocketing anyway.
There's always a lot of sticky fingers on all these things, okay? So it's not all about, look, I totally agree, the majority might well be taxation. But the petrol companies themselves, they say, oh, right, 1 for the Middle East, 2 for me, etc., and that their profits will go up just the same. So why not just say to the petrol companies, either, not necessarily the petrol companies, also the petrol retailers, just say to them, we would be grateful if, I remember in New York, there was a terrible happening in New York State, and a terrible hurricane hit them. And the mayor Bloomberg said to the insurance companies, I will take your license away from you, i.e. your company will go bust unless you pay these people out on the dot.
Right.
Right? So there's the mayor, as believer in capitalism as you could find. Why don't we just say to the petrol retailers and to the and to the petrol wholesalers, look, mate, we don't want you. We quite understand you have to pay more, but we don't want you gouging. Okay? And if we see examples of that, we will literally shut your business down. I am massively in favour of people making money. I'm not in favour of people taking advantage of you when you have absolutely no idea of where the value is or what really the price is.
I'm sympathetic to that, Calvin. But the problem is, you see, it's not the petrol retailers themselves. A lot of them are private companies, one-man bands, etc., and they're tied so much into contracts. It's the wholesalers and the further up the fuel supply chain that control everything. The retailers are actually bound to contracts which they can't get out of. They really are tied into those sorts of things. So I wouldn't hit the retailers. I definitely would hit the wholesalers big time.
You don't have to put the price up today just because of petrol supposedly going up tomorrow. They've got the petrol, they've already paid for it, they don't need to gouge us, and I think Kelvin makes a good point. Anyway, Howard, listen, good to see you, man. Talk to you again soon. Howard Cox there from Fair Fuel UK, giving his lowdown on what the prices are. We actually did this, I remember the last time there was a run on petrol, and we did an exercise, and we'd get people to ring in and say, where can you find the most expensive petrol? And I think the place we found the most expensive petrol in on that occasion was a petrol station on the embankment. As you go down towards Battersea Power Station.
Right.
There's one on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
You might know it. And it was way and above, like about 25p per litre more expensive than almost anywhere else in the country, which is extraordinary. So I guess if you're in
you can get value. For instance, I have bought in, I just thought I'd announce this, Panna raisins for your
Yeah, I've got the bag here.
Well,
he's trying to fatten me up.
Take it out. Show.
He's trying to fatten me up.
Show the viewer.
Panna raisins. Right.
There's Panna raisins. Right. Now these Panna raisins are the greatest Panna raisins. They are the great. Look at the size of that. The greatest Panna raisins in in Britain today.
They are very good.
Right, you get them from a place called the Exchange at Vauxhall rail station.
Oh, yeah.
Vauxhall tube station, railway station. Sorry.
Yes.
And however, they cost £4.40.
That's quite a lot of money.
A lot of money. It's gouging, right? So we're going to have to call
So you
in.
paid nearly £9.
We're going to have to pay for the Panna Raisin regulator.
I've got one as well.
Yeah.
All right,
Pooch has got one.
So you spent about 13 quid.
20.
Look,
Right.
I look at the state of you guys, and I say the one thing that you need energy to keep this kind of quality going. It's not easy to be.
Yeah, but you can't have the sugar rush thing going on either, because then you'll come down.
May have peaked
I'll
too
fall
early.
asleep. I'll fall asleep on the way back home in the car, which won't be good. But that just reminded me, I've got to pay my parking. Thank God for that.
God. Right.
Anyway, listen, coming up to 4 minutes past 8. Coming up next, we've got some breaking news from Israel. We're going to be speaking to our next guest, who is a guy who does a podcast over there. I'm going to tell you his name in a minute. Ariel Whitman, I think it is, yeah. Apparently there's some action going on between Israel and Lebanon this morning, and he's going to be telling us all about that, which will no doubt, I'm sure, have another go at the petrol prices. But let's get some news first up with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, all. Here's the news with me, Eddie Hughes. Good morning. The escalating US-Israeli conflict with Iran dominates UK headlines for the third day. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has defended his decision to keep Britain out of direct offensive strikes on Iran, while allowing US forces limited defensive use of British bases. He's faced criticism from President Trump, who expressed disappointment. A suspected Hezbollah drone struck a UK RAF base in Cyprus, causing limited damage but raising fears of wider involvement, with experts noting Britain's stretched defences after years of underinvestment. Domestically, the government announced major asylum reforms, making refugee status temporary around 30 months initially, to deter migration, sparking debate over potential breaches of international conventions. Other stories include MPs' salaries, set to rise to £110,000 by the end of this parliament, a new study showing weight loss drugs could prevent deadly heart attack complications, and Scotland becoming the first UK nation to legalise water cremations. Plus, economic ripples from the Middle East crisis are already affecting shipping insurance in the Gulf and could impact Chancellor Rachel Reeves's upcoming fiscal plans. More details unfolding as the Iran situation develops rapidly. Stay tuned. Remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. Thank you very much indeed. The big story this morning on all the front pages, of course, is still very much the situation in the Middle East. US lambasts hanged, ringing Keir is the front page of the Daily Mail. I'm very disappointed in Keir, says the Daily Telegraph. That's an interview with Donald Trump. As we said earlier, if you're disappointed, how do you think we feel? In action this day from Starmer, page 1 on the Sun. Big strike coming, says the USA at the front page of the Times. Starmer and Trump clash over the Ayatollah. And fears grow in The Guardian at Iran conflict spreading. And obviously an awful lot, as we were talking to Howard Cox there about the price of petrol, gas prices through the roof, front page of the Telegraph as well. And so, we wait, I suppose. I mean, things appear to be sort of turning around a little bit in the Middle East in the sense that flights have now started going again. A flight arrived from Etihad Airways, I think, coming in from Abu Dhabi yesterday into London. And as I said, my daughter, who was supposedly going to be rerouted to Singapore, ended up getting back to Dubai last night. So there are some planes flying. Claire Pearsall's here, former Downing Street advisor. Claire, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Crisis, what crisis, you might have said, would have been Keir Starmer's words yesterday. I mean, he got up, pulled himself up to his full height of 5'4" and 3/4, and tried to make out that he was sort of this international statesman concerned only about international law, and very clear that we didn't do anything at all to do with, these strikes on Iran. He's got a kind of indefensible position here, isn't he? Because he's, as Kelvin said, if you're the Spanish, you say, well, we're not taking part in it, we're not joining in, and we never will.
Yeah.
Whereas what he's done is he's gone, well, we're not taking part in it, we're not joining in, we never will. Oh, now we're going to join in.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and defensive rather than offensive. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, it doesn't. And when you saw him stand up in the chamber yesterday, he drew himself up and he put on his very, very serious voice, and he was very, very cross. And you just thought, God, we need a statesman, and we haven't got one. We have this man standing up, mentioning the word
We've got a train
law.
announcer, basically, haven't we?
Yes, we do. I mean, it would be a good job on South Eastern Railways for him. But he mentioned law so many times. What he didn't mention was what is going on in the region and how that does affect us. And we do need to be backing up our allies.
Yes. Well, also, a lot of people are asking the question about Cyprus in particular, because old John Healey, who was around on Sunday morning, making a complete fool of himself because he couldn't decide or say whether or not we were in favour of the Americans attacking Iran or not. And he also said, well, you know, the thing is that missile that landed on the base in Cyprus, the British base, we don't think they meant to send it there. They weren't really aiming at Cyprus. It just kind of, you know, happened to end up there. We're pretty sure it wasn't deliberate. And people are asking the question, where's the bleeding Royal Navy? You know, why are we not using the Royal Navy to at least protect, if nothing else, British bases and British servicemen and women working overseas? Instead, we've got the Greek Navy apparently protecting Cyprus.
Yes, we do. When I heard John Healey say that, it was like, well, where did he think they were heading for?
Right.
The RAF at Criteria is quite a big base. It's quite well known. What were they doing? Trying to head for a kebab shop?
I know.
You know, downtown
1,000
Qatar.
miles away, they sent a missile. I think they knew what they were doing.
Utterly ridiculous. And it's kind of a bit close to my heart. I was born on a British military base in Cyprus.
Okay.
Yeah, BMH Decalia.
Does that mean you can have Cypriot citizenship? Well,
sadly not.
It's British, isn't it?
Yes, it's
Because I
sovereign
remember a
territory.
story. There was a story, I think, a couple of years ago that some asylum seekers, rather sort of, you know, inventive asylum seekers, were trying to land on a British base in Cyprus in order to basically claim asylum in Britain.
Yeah, and you can't do that. You can't just rock up to sovereign territory. But no, sadly, I don't have any dual nationality. I am British, even though I'm foreign born, according to some parties. But it's quite interesting why we don't have better defences out there. We've got 2 bases. Not much of a deterrent effect, really. It's a strategic points. But where are the ships? We need those. The Greek have some vessels,
where is
but
our
not
Navy?
many.
I mean, such as it. I know there's not much of it, but where is it?
We've got some in dry dock being repaired. I think we do have one out in the Mediterranean on mission at the moment. But we don't have enough, and this is the underfunding of the Defence Service that has been going on for decades.
Because I was watching some of the videos last night on TV of the US sort of Fifth Fleet, and it's quite stunning what they can do. You know, there was a B-2 bomber, the thing that looks like it's something out of Star Wars, landing on an aircraft carrier. There was, you know, the USS Gerald Ford, I think it is, which is with 24 stories high. It's got about 50 planes on it. And you just think, you don't want to mess with these people. You really don't.
You don't, but we can't build anything, because our procurement is so bad in this country. And when we do build something, do you not remember we built an aircraft carrier that then wasn't big enough for the aircraft it was meant to contain? So we just ended up with a large boat, basically.
Right. And also, wasn't there a case where we were doing some kind of joint venture with the French, and we built an aircraft carrier, but we haven't got any planes to put on it?
No.
So it's an aircraft carrier with no aircraft.
Exactly, that's what I mean. So you've just got a large sort of flatbed ship there floating.
Yeah.
Hopefully that somebody will build some aircraft for it eventually. But it just comes back to we don't take our defence seriously in this country. And to listen to the Defence Secretary out there sort of go, well, it doesn't really matter, we're okay, they weren't firing at us, honest God.
Yeah.
You just think, who is in charge of this? What are they doing? And why are we not protected?
And also, what kind of policy is it that you, as a Prime Minister, say, well, we're not going to take part in the initial attack. We'll just wait and see what happens. And then if they attack us, then we might do something. Well, I mean, that's a bit like going into a boxing ring and saying, I'm not going to throw any punches until I get smashed in the face.
Yes.
You know, what's the point of that?
By which point it is all too late. I mean, I think you either need to back up your allies or you don't. And if you're going to sit it out, then don't expect anybody to come to your aid ever again. And I think this is the problem that we have. We have a lawyer in charge of something which he's incapable of making a decision quickly. He wants to sit and think about it. Well, war doesn't really wait for Keir Starmer to go make a decision.
But that's exactly as Kelvin was saying, why you don't want lawyers in charge of the bleeding country. Because lawyers do nothing. They spend their time looking for reasons to do nothing. They find, you know, frameworks within which to work in order to do nothing. And then they bill you £1 million for the privilege of doing nothing.
Exactly. They're so risk averse. I mean, I'm surprised any of them ever cross a road or get into a car and drive.
Would you like a cup of tea, Prime Minister? Well, I'll have to call Lord Hermer to see whether that would be
Ask him what his favourite biscuit is.
International law.
He'd have a meltdown, wouldn't he? He wouldn't have a pastry. He wouldn't, decide which side and what kind of pastry he'd like.
Unbelievable. Just ridiculous. But luckily, though, we've got Rachel Reeves sitting in the Treasury helping out. She's going to be getting up this morning at about 11:30, we think, Richard III. Somebody said, can you not just put her back under the car park in Leicester? What's she going to say today?
Nothing. She's due to stand up at 12:30.
Right.
Now, she can't make any spending announcements. There's going to be no rabbits out of the hat.
No.
That lovely
phrase. There's no money, is there?
Well, there is no money, but also she changed the rules when she became Chancellor because the spring statement was creeping into one of those, we can make a couple of spending announcements. When she became Chancellor, she stopped that. So that was her rule. She stopped it, can't make any decisions. So I'm not sure what she's going to stand up there and say. Sort of, it's all going so well because we're likely to believe that, aren't we?
Well, I mean, they keep saying it, though. They keep saying that the economy is turning the corner. They keep saying we're going to have more money in our pockets. We've brought inflation down. We've had interest rate cut one after another. And it's kind of like they're living in cloud cuckoo land. And then, of course, there'll be the usual mention of, free breakfast clubs at school, free school meals, and the fact that, they've done really, really well by freezing the cost of going on the train, which doesn't sound like they've frozen it to me. I mean, you come in on the train when you come in. I mean, how much does that cost you?
It cost me the grand total of £40.10.
A day?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I come from North Kent, so
which is not very far away.
It's not. It's
so what,
26 miles.
So what? 30 minutes on the train?
Fast train if I'm lucky to get one. Otherwise, I'm sitting on it for 50 minutes, uncomfortably packed and late.
Yeah.
Today it actually ran on time, so there are some blessings to be had, but. They can say all they like that everything is fine and we're doing well and growth is coming. Well, I can say that I'm 5'10" and a supermodel, age 20.
Yeah.
I'm not. It doesn't make it so.
I mean, I wouldn't argue with that, to be honest.
I love you. That's nice. But you can't just keep saying something. And all the ministers that come out.
This is their MO. They like to repeat things and repeat them for often enough so that because they obviously think that in some focus group somewhere, Morgan McSweeney told me, if you keep saying it, people will just think it's true.
Yeah.
But people have seen through all that, haven't they?
It's the Islington dinner parties. They sit around telling them what a terribly good job they've done over a quinoa supper. And the world is a safe place again.
Yeah.
And you just think, well, step outside of that, come to the mean streets of Kent, and you'll see that all is not good.
Yeah, or try and actually go on public transport once in a while and see how you get along.
Yes.
I mean, because today we've got the news that they're all giving themselves a pay rise. So they're going to have now £110,000 they're going to make and we've got a great little clip. I don't know if should we play that clip for the Taxpayers Alliance?
I haven't got that.
You haven't got it? Oh, okay. Well, we're going to do it as plank of the day. But basically, Taxpayers Alliance have come out and said, MPs should not automatically get a pay rise. Mm-hmm. They should actually have their pay linked to GDP per capita, because if it's going down, then they should get actually a pay cut. If they're increasing the GDP per capita, then we can all benefit. But if they are running the country into the ground and we're all worse off, they should also be worse off.
The other row that is coming up, I've heard from an awful lot of staffers in the House of Commons who are not getting such an increase in their pay. And they're the ones that are taking on the brunt of all the work. So IPSA's decision was based upon the increased amount of casework that MPs are doing and how tough it all is. Well, OK, remind me how many of them actually do that, or do their staff in the office actually take that on and speak to the public and book appointments, do all the casework? It's not the MP sitting there literally replying to every single email that comes in. So I think that there's another row brewing. There is a unionised side of staffers in Parliament. They're particularly unhappy. Let's see what that brings. But I don't think it'll change anything. Yeah. You've got some people sitting there on just above the living wage, whilst MPs are raking in 110 grand.
I mean, when you were working inside the system, as it were, how did you find that they kind of responded to those kind of criticisms if they were in government, people who were kind of ministers and important type people?
Some of them listen to it, but then just say, well, I can't do anything to change it, and then they move on. And then there are others who are just oblivious. They live in their little bubble within government departments, and they're sheltered from absolutely everything. And they just don't pay attention. They don't understand what it's like to go to the supermarket and just think, how am I going to afford this? Can I afford to turn my heating on? I've got to put petrol in my car, for example. I've got to do that when I get home. And
as it gets more and more expensive.
$1.38 a litre down the road from where I live, and that's gone up from $1.36 yesterday evening.
Yeah, right. Well, this is what I was saying earlier to Howard Cox. You know, isn't it great that petrol stations who've already got the same petrol that they had yesterday are now charging more for it just because it says on the news that petrol prices are going up? And you go, well, you know, you didn't pay any more for it.
It's still sitting there.
It's still sitting there in a tank. And you already paid for it, so why do you have to put the price up?
This is 8 hours difference when I looked at the petrol station when I drove past, and I didn't have time to do it this morning. But you just think, what's it going to be by the time I get home? And there is some rumour that some petrol stations are running out already because people are
they will
buying.
Be, because, you know, people are mad and they'll go and stock up. You got the Taxpayers Alliance? Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, let's have a look at this.
It's just been announced that MPs' pay will go up by an inflation-busting 5%, taking their annual salary to almost £100,000 per year. This is absolutely disgraceful when hard-working taxpayers are facing a personal recession and a record-high tax burden. Let's call this what it is. It's rewarding failure. MPs' salaries should not go up automatically. They should be linked to GDP per capita, because if the country gets poorer, so should they.
I love that line. If the country gets poorer, so should they. I think she's absolutely right about that.
She's absolutely spot on. The Taxpayers Alliance do really good work on things like this, highlighting the inadequacies of the system.
They really do. And one final mention of Rachel Reeves. She's in the papers today in page 5 of the Daily Mail, meeting Leeds Mosque Chairman Arshad Khatana. This was Robert Jenrick's story yesterday. That he said, you know, this is a woman who's been going to this guy's house. He's now been suspended by Labour over his abhorrent online views because the guy turns out to be a total scumbag, a racist, anti-Semitic, and, you know, generally a friend of the Labour Party.
But why did they not realise this? Why has it taken somebody to post up all of the social media clips, which are available quite freely?
Right.
The Labour Party seemingly just went, oh yeah, we'll suspend him now. But clearly 10 years ago...
There's a picture of her meeting him with a scarf over her head, you know, and you just think, well, how were you not aware of his views?
Well, you must be. If she's had conversations with him, he must have dropped it in about, you know, how much he doesn't like the Jewish community or something. You know, there must have been signs. But clearly she was so blinded to it and just wanted the votes from that section of the community, I would assume.
Yes, exactly right. Absolutely shocking stuff. Anyway, listen, great to see you, Claire. Thank you very much indeed. Safe home. Do you get to stay all day in London for your 40 quid or whatever it is?
Yes, I've got to go to Westminster. So.
Oh, really? OK. What's going on there today then?
Oh, well, spring statement. So I'll follow that so you don't have to.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Absolutely brilliant. Claire Pearsall there with the latest from Westminster. Rachel Reeves getting up, we think, around about 12:30 today to give us the good news that everything's going really, really well. Brilliant. Right, now, we've got another guest coming up. We're going to go over to Israel right now because we've got, for the first time, Ariel Whitman in Tel Aviv. He is a podcaster and, I'm told, a controversial character. Ariel, very good morning to you.
I guess we have that in common. Hi.
I guess so. Well, that's why you're here. I understand you've got some breaking news for us about what's going on with Lebanon and some firings of missiles and things.
Yeah, so we've had since last night missiles from Hezbollah. I've been in the shelter with my kids here. I have a 4, a 3, and a 1. And this morning, the Prime Minister's office announced that Israel has sent troops inside Lebanon for the first time since Saturday, since this all started. And they said they're only going to take over certain high ground where they can control the area, but knowing how these things progress, learning from what we had for these past 3 years, I assume that this is going to be something more, deeper than what they're telling us. So it's official. Israel has boots on the ground in Lebanon now. And yesterday, the head of the IDF, Chief of Staff, said that we won't stop until the threat is eliminated. This is the first time, I think, definitely since October 7th, that the IDF has spoken in such a way. They always were careful to say that they won't that we're taking the missile threat away. We're going to move Hezbollah north of the Litani River. This is the first time that the chief of the IDF is willing to say that not only are we going to hit back at Hezbollah, but we're actually going to go all the way until we eliminate the threat. And he told us also that we are going to face weeks of tension and that the citizens should be ready to bear the brunt. So speaking of someone who lives here, it's mixed messaging because it's going to be tough. But I think on the other hand, it's a very positive thing. We're finally able to get permission, so to speak, from the Americans to finish the job. That was one of the big issues during the Biden administration, where literally because of Joe Biden and his embargo on weapons, soldiers were dying in the field because they didn't have armor and things that they needed to protect themselves. And they kept on getting stopped by the Americans. and now we have a free hand to do what we need to do. So it's a short-term toughness. Yesterday, I think it was 9 people died in Bet Shemesh near Jerusalem, and next to me, a missile fell in the park, which was very scary for the kids. But, I think most people here are very, very happy about what's happening.
Yes. And does that mean that the operations in Iran are pretty much over and done with then? Because there was a talk, I think, a few days ago that there was already now, military superiority in the air over Tehran for the Americans and for the Israelis. So does that mean that the Israelis no longer need to worry about whatever is going on in Iran and they can concentrate on Lebanon?
No, as we're bombing Lebanon, we were bombing in Tehran at the same time today. We took out, I don't like the word assassin, we took out a chief of the IRGC that was the liaison of the IRGC to Hezbollah in Beirut. And I've spoken with a few people in the military today and yesterday night, and they all said, get ready for some very big surprises in Tehran in the next 48 hours. Refusing to tell what exactly is going to happen. They said there's a lot more targets left to hit. Last night, El Arabiya, which is the Saudi TV station, which has good sources in Arab countries, said that the Mossad and Israeli elite forces were actually on the ground in Tehran during the night. I have no confirmation from that from here, but they're saying that we're looking at more weeks of fighting with the Iranians. And the Israelis are very confident that there's going to be at least a good chance of regime change in Iran. I think that's something that the Americans are more reluctant to say. But yeah, we're looking at long. It's tough here. We're going to see a lot of missiles being shot at Israel. And I assume more people are going to die. The people who died, those 9 people, went into the shelter. They did everything right that they tell you to do. Go into the shelter, stay hunkered in. But a ballistic missile that is a direct hit on a shelter, you have no chance. It's just a fluke thing, and you got to pray that doesn't happen again. But yeah, it's scary stuff.
Yeah, I bet. And what's the situation with the airspace? Because we're hearing certainly from Dubai and from Abu Dhabi that there are some flights now flying out and flying in. What's the situation in Tel Aviv and Ben Gurion and all that?
So the airport is going to be open today from some limited flights, meaning all of the Israeli companies, there's 4 Israeli companies, they're all going to bring people back to Israel, people that want to come back, which is a weird thing that people want to be in a country that's being bombed, but that it is what it is. And Wizz Air supposedly will be helping the Israeli companies bring back people who want to come to Israel. And they're saying that they're gradually going to try to open the airport. They think that they're going to be able to control the situation. They know about 10 minutes beforehand, before the ballistic missile hits, when it's being shot. So you're able to basically warn pilots to stay up in the air, wait till everything's clear, and come back in. It's a crazy thing. But yeah, they're opening slowly, first the Israeli airlines, and then I assume a lot of airlines will be reluctant to actually come back. But until everything is over, just because of insurance and security reasons. But they're saying that they're going to open up in the next few days, and they're already opening yesterday. Some flights came in. It's a testament to the missile program here, where we're able to protect airplanes as they're landing while missiles are being shot. By the way, another interesting thing that people don't, I think, know is that this, for the first time in Israel's history, we have been shooting down some of the missiles by laser. So until now, we've been shooting missiles down by the Iron Dome, the David Sling, and all that. The Israeli defense industry was able to, through the years, develop a laser system. Took a lot of money to develop, but to shoot down the missiles is almost nothing. They just project the laser onto the missile, very hot laser, especially when it's not cloudy. The missile gets shot down. You don't pay money for the anti-missile projectile. You just pay a little bit of electricity and the missile's shot down. They've been using it sporadically to try to test it now, and it's 90+% success rate. So they're going to use that more and more. That's Star Wars kind of stuff. So that's where we are here.
That's amazing. Absolutely great.
Yeah.
Ariel, good to meet you. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Ariel Whitman, podcaster, reporting into us live from Tel Aviv. Kelvin McKenzie's back. Kelvin, amazing, isn't it, when you hear some of the hardware that they've got in Israel?
But do you know what?
We got none of this, by the way.
Well, first of all, we don't have intelligent people living here.
No.
Right? I mean, I don't know what's quite happened to our country.
Yeah.
We're not the great inventors that we were. Anyway, that may be a strange thing to... by the way, I like that guy because he was telling us things we didn't know.
Yes.
Whereas you normally get some pontificating prat on the BBC who says, the people I am speaking to, there's a lady who does it, the people I'm speaking to tells me that things are going rather well in the talks. And then 5 days later, the people I'm speaking to are telling me they are not going so well. What tells you that?
Yeah.
Well, there's a missile landed about 2 feet from them.
Right. Yeah.
But the idea that you can shoot it down, now that really is a fantastic thing.
With a laser.
So that guy should come on more often because he's telling you actually what's going on, and we should win. But look, let's get carried away. There is only one important story today.
Yeah.
It is the story of with the headline in the Times, drunk driving instructor crashes into ditch while 4 times over the limit. Not only that, he was actually heading out to take a lesson, the first lesson of the morning. So this is the dangerous area of a place called Pembury in Carmarthenshire last month. They breathalyzed him. He's 4 times over. Now, this is the bit that I like.
This is in the morning, right?
This is the bit I like. Passing motorists heckled him. Right, he crashes into a ditch. Right, he's crashing into a ditch. Passing motorists heckled him while he was still trapped in his vehicle. In a video from the scene, one onlooker quipped, "You can't park there, mate." Now, so this guy who saw him clearly recognised he was pissed.
Right.
Was killing himself laughing at the idea that this guy is takes people out to get them to learn how to drive. Right, if he took them out, learn how to drink. Come on, your plonk of the week.
That would be different.
Right? He beat.
Somebody just fired off in my ear there. But
right. Another driver warned Howes, who was later seen looking dazed, right, in a black vehicle. Just a reminder now, you don't want to have lessons off this guy, right? But can you imagine? So this is the great thing about, in this case, the Welsh, but which was on behalf of the British.
Yes.
Right? Rather than being like we are here, actually I'm not, and you're not, but you know, you're some prat on the BBC.
They'd all be saying this is a very serious matter.
You know, I think what we should have actually anybody who's taking anybody out professionally for a learner driver test of any kind should actually have to blow into a bag first. So this bloke couldn't. He's 4 times over. He couldn't even see the bag.
No,
could he?
No.
Do you mind blowing into this?
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
But anyway, it's that kind. Unbelievably, that bloke did not go to jail. He got a suspended sentence, and even more ludicrously, it was only banned for 30 months.
Really?
30 months.
Has he kept his job? Presumably they fired him from his job.
Well, no, they're going to do it. It's all right. He's just sitting there. He's not driving, is he? That's his job. He said, when I tap
emergency stop.
So,
yeah. Why? There's a pub there. You know.
An emergency stop outside the Dog and Duck. He said, I want you to do a 3-point turn in this car park. You carry on doing it for half an hour. I'm going to go and have 5 pints.
I used to have the honour, great honour, when I was working with Piers Morgan at the Mirror, of running the Welsh edition of the Daily Mirror. Right,
the Welsh
which we started up, because it was the only growth area in the entire company, right? Because of course, the trouble was that they started changing a lot of the sport, and then they realised actually the most popular sport in Wales was in fact the Premier League, and they're quite like Manchester United.
I thought it was sheep shagging.
Right about Cardiff and all that. Yeah. But there used to be this sports reporter down there, and there was a guy called Peter Pace, who you might remember.
I do remember.
Who was the sports editor. He used to come in a bit later because he would work a bit, and I'd get in the morning. And this guy would ring up every morning at 9:30. Hello, is Peter Piss there? And I'd go, no, he's not here, mate. He doesn't get in till 10:30. And he would always say, I'll tell you what it's about. And I was like, don't tell me what it's about. I don't care. Ring back when he's here. But he said every morning he did the same thing. I'll tell you what it's about.
If it was Welsh sport, it'd be a very short conversation.
It was a very short,
Well, what about this? So we used to have, on The Sun, we used to have a thing called The Irish, right? And because it was the Irish, it was called...
In Dublin?
No, it was called... No, this was in London. We ran out of London. It was called the Diddley. And the reason for that was that it was a function of working at the Sun.
Right.
Anybody who said, the Irish editor said, I've got a good one for the Irish. He didn't say the Irish, he said the Diddley. And when he said the Diddley, right, everybody had to put their hands firmly by the side of their thighs and go diddly, 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 diddly. Right. Okay.
The Michael Flatley thing.
This goes on well. Right. This goes on fine.
Yeah.
I am at my big desk giving it the old page 3. I'm sure it'll work. Right. Anyway, I'm giving it all that. Murdoch is sitting on my sofa there.
Yeah.
Right. The door opens. The Irish editor comes in.
Right.
And he says, "I've got a great one for the Diddley." Now, for 3 years, every time the word diddly had been mentioned, diddly, diddly, diddly. I just sit and look at him. I look at him and think to myself, his name was Peter Cox.
Peter Cox, I remember Peter Cox.
Peter, don't do this.
Yeah.
Don't do this, because I can't introduce you to Murdoch that's behind you. And he said, the diddly. And he goes, diddly, 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 diddly. Right. He turns round. In the silence, he said, what's up? There's old Murdoch sitting there going, and what's all this about then? I said, look, it's just a little joke we have to keep us all happy.
Fantastic.
Anyway, so that's the full extent of why we were selling 4.5 million a day.
Brilliant.
Anyway,
he tried to get me fired once, Peter Cox, when I was up in Scotland. Because I went up there to edit then the Scottish edition of the Mirror, having been so successful at pushing up the sale of the Welsh, and he was running the Daily Record, and I think I'd been there about 2 days, and Piers had said, if you do a great job, he said you could get the editorship of the Daily Record, right? And I went, fair enough.
The editorship of the Daily Record was considered a great job. It doesn't even exist. In fact, I tell you what, it's now printed in England.
Yeah, I think they only sell about 75,000 copies a day now. Anyway, we somehow managed to have access to their exclusive basket. And my news editor at the time, a guy called Sean Milne, came in one day. He said, this is a good story. He said, that girl from Texas, the singer, can't remember her name. Who's the lead singer of Texas, Pooch? Can't remember. Anyway.
Can I just say, the great thing about this television show is this grasp we have on modern icons.
Well, I mean
Charlene Spiteri.
Charlene Spiteri.
There we are. Thanks very much, Google.
Scottish singer. Turned out she was pregnant, right?
That's a big story in Scotland.
Big story anywhere, right?
Is it?
Yeah. Well, at the time,
a woman is pregnant is a big story.
Well, she was a bit older, and Texas is quite a big band, right?
Okay, fine.
So anyway, I mean, I'm quite shocked that, given some of the rubbish that you printed, that you're now questioning my judgment.
The biggest sale we ever got was "Man Makes Love to Pavement" in Southend.
I remember that story.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, the sale went off the rockets.
So absolutely right. So I went, this is a great story. So I said, well, I think we'll splash that.
Yeah.
And so it was. I think it was a Wednesday. Anyway, I get a phone call at about 10 o'clock at night. And from my night editor, and he said, I think there's a bit of trouble coming. I said, what's that? He said, well, they've come over from the Record to have a look at our book, and they've seen that we've got page 1 on Charlene Spiteri, and they've gone mad.
Why?
Because apparently it's their exclusive, right?
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it?
What I didn't know was they were holding on to it, right?
They didn't publish.
It wasn't in their paper. I get a phone call from Peter Cox calling me all sorts of names. Oh, I'm going to have you. I'm going to. And he spent the entire next period of 24 hours trying to get me fired, sending emails to Piers Morgan telling him what a horrible little bastard I was, who kept then sending the emails back to me. And we got into this fight about whether we should be able to have access to all sorts of different baskets. And in the end, I cut their access to the racing, to the sport, to all the mirror stuff that they needed to get their paper out. It was hilarious. And Piers sent me a message later on. He said, "Look," he said, "well done." He said, I knew
you were the same company, weren't you?
Yeah, we're in the same building.
Yeah.
And I came in the next morning to be greeted by my secretary saying, Peter Cox wants to see you in his office. To which I said, well, I'll be very happy to see him if he wants to come to my office. And it was just this ridiculous backwards and forwards. And in the end, Piers said to me, he said, well, I knew you'd probably shake things up a bit. He said, I didn't think you'd do it within 3 days.
Right, so the other major story of the day must be the polling results from YouGov.
Oh, yeah. I've not seen this.
Right, so this is the big stuff, and if I could find it, it would probably be enormously helpful. But what it shows is two important things. First of all, the Greens are in second place.
Yes.
So Reform are at 23. I think the Greens
That's quite low for them, isn't it?
It's down 1, but it's not so bad because the Tories are, right, so she may be doing a great job. I have no idea. But in fact, they're on 16%. Labour on 16%. They are new record lows for YouGov. Wow. So there is plenty going on politically. And the idea that the Greens are on 21 is really
that is extraordinary.
And what it means is that people are constantly hanging around to be kind of lifted up in some way by some political idea. And the idea that the Greens are the answer, which, can I just say, we can all just about take a boat and start heading out of this country, as they are basically in favour of no borders.
Yes.
So if you
Dan Hodges got a piece in the Mail today saying it's now very clear to him that the Green Party is basically running British foreign policy because of the way that they're pushing Labour to the left. To make sure that they try and keep on the hold of this Muslim vote, because nobody's mentioning this on the main sort of media channels. But I don't think this has got anything to do with international law. This whole business of we didn't take part in the first attack. It's all about appeasing the Muslim community. Nothing to do with international law.
And they recognise that the Muslims are at least 4 million, and then they're going up by tens of thousands. Illegally.
Well, do you know, you said this last week, and I agree with you, because I didn't discover it until sort of the weekend when I was listening. When they said there's 30% of the Gorton and Denton constituency, or one of them, which has got a Muslim...
Long site,
Right, but that was a census from 2021, right? So forget 30%. You're looking at more like 50%.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine who goes there quite regularly, he hasn't got any friends, so he goes around there just to be annoyed. Says that it would never surprise me if it weren't 50%. The Greens is a big issue, but it's a bigger issue for Labour. So Labour down at 16. At 16, there will be virtually no MPs, no Labour MPs at all, which will be a
Most of the cabinet are out of a job as well.
No, well, they probably deserve to go anyway, but they're probably... I listened to a fantastic MP for Hull who was basically shoving it to...
Carl Turner,
Yeah, shoving it. We should get him on because he talked more sense in a clearly a 2 or 3 minute rant, which he felt very unhappy about the Gorton and Denton, than I've heard any MP speak since. There's a real sense of disconnect between Labour and the constituency. Now, look, the issue we face is that we had this with the Conservatives, right?
Right.
So what is it we can do? And I don't know whether this is kosher or not, but I saw a piece the other day suggesting that Starmer would do a deal with the Greens to actually switch us to proportional representation. Now, that may be a nightmare because in a place like Israel, for instance, they take, and Holland and other places, they take literally 6 to 9 months. But 6 to 9 months of politicians not passing laws actually would possibly do us all a favour.
Well, do you remember when Northern Ireland didn't have a government? It actually worked a lot better. You know, when there was nobody sitting in Stormont because they couldn't agree on how they were going to do it. They had no government at all.
Correct.
It was fine.
Correct.
Nobody cared.
And the only people that worried about this were people who actually wanted, who can't get work anywhere else. They can only get work in politics, where the strong suit in politics is your ability to tell lies.
Yes.
Let's be honest about it. At the end of the day, they're not allowed to say, because of collective responsibility, what they actually think. Therefore, what was the point of that idiot Healy going on the TV rounds on Sunday, making a bloody fool of himself, but more importantly, making a fool of the very people who are paying his bloody wages?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Why didn't he just turn around and say, look, I'm the defence minister. Actually, I'm in favour of firing missiles at my effing enemies.
Yeah, right.
It's as simple as that.
Right.
But he won't say that. Why? Because boom, the next thing, you've been telling the truth again.
I know.
You're out.
You're out. And you know, he could also say, by the way, a decision was made which I didn't agree with. The government decided to do it, and that's what I'm here to tell you. But I can't say I'm in favour of it.
Take that fat brat Lammy.
Yeah.
Okay. So he says, oh yes, the appointment of Mandelson. Fine idea. Then, when the shit hits the fan, he then turns around and says, well, actually, I did say to the Prime Minister, don't employ that bloke.
So why do they come out? I mean, at least they should have the gumption, if they don't agree with it, not to be in favour of it, and just to say nothing.
Go missing.
Yeah.
Go missing on that area. I'm not being drawn into that area, right? Why tell a straightforward lie? Actually, the funny thing about saying I'm not going to answer that question actually immediately means that you're on the other side. But so I don't know whether Healy's got any brains or not.
I don't think he has.
Right, but there was
you know what he's like? He's like one of those, he's like that sort of Gareth Southgate figure, you know, because he strokes his chin a lot and he looks very serious. He's obviously an intelligent bloke. He's not an intelligent bloke. He's a bloody idiot, right? That's why he's been given permission to go and speak on behalf of the government.
So this is the way that you identify people. Immediately you see somebody going like that, you think, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Well, it could be worse. You could have the intake of breath, couldn't you? When somebody asks a question.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I've been requested on there to do a Janet Street Porter impression.
Yeah.
You're going to have to wait a couple of minutes. This is a serious show, this.
I'll tell you what, it's a serious show. All right, thanks very much.
Yeah, there you go. To get to 3,000 likes. We're at 3.6 thousand likes, actually. Get Janet Street Porter on.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
Right. So, when I was running the Sun, God knows why we're doing this, right? We had a picture we put a picture of red rum next to Janet Street Porter and asked which was the more attractive, right?
Those were the days, right?
And do you know what? Like 99-1, they all voted for red rum. It was so they all got the gang. I tell you what, though, there is no other story to worry about except the driving instructor so pissed first thing in the morning that he crashes into it, and that instead of people helping him out of the car, they're all cracking gags at him.
Right, unbelievable. Going back to the politicians and the answers that they give, we're going to go to our next guest in a moment. Jackie Smith, I don't know if you saw her, she was on Sky.
What is she? She's now Baroness Smith.
She's now Baroness Smith, yeah.
Right.
Her husband stopped watching porn, I think, and charging it to the taxpayer. Thank God for that. You know,
I represent Sue Gravitt and Run in this issue, and was that actually identified? Was it?
Oh yeah, because he claimed.
Are they still married? Or
they're still married.
They're not now.
Well, she famously switched. They kept switching houses because she stayed in her sister's house in London, claimed rent on that for a while because that was her second home.
Correct.
Then flipped it over back to Birmingham, where she bought all the garden furniture to kit out the backyard and the barbecue and all the rest of it. And then
gave that to the government. Gave that to us.
Charged that to us as well. Then it turned out he'd also put in a few blue movies basically that he'd watched.
Blue movies. That's going back a bit,
as it were. Well, listen, I don't know why it came to me. Anyway, no, but she appears on Sky the same day that Mandelson gets arrested, right? And she comes on and she said, well, actually, I'm not here to talk about that. And they go, and even Sky were going, well, sorry, your former ambassador to the United States of America has just been lifted by the police. I'm afraid we're going to have to ask you about it. And she said, well, I'd rather talk about the new plan.
I'd rather talk about the price of cauliflower.
Special needs schools. It was all that,
Oh, right.
And they just wouldn't let her answer to talk about that at all.
And what did she say in there?
And in the end, she just said, well, I'm not here to talk about it. And you're going to go in, well, how dare you treat the public like idiots? If you're there representing the government, one of your key officials has just been arrested and is likely to be charged with, a quite serious offence, which could land him in prison. I think you might want to have something to say about it.
Wouldn't it be fantastic? She said, well, I'm not really here to talk about it, but now you've raised it with me. Can I just point out, I always viewed him as a slimy shitbag. and then the Sky guy would say, I think you've gone too far.
Yeah, you've gone too far.
Gone too far. We don't know whether the slimy shitbag's ever going to be charged.
I'm going to apologise for that, yeah. Some people have been complaining, by the way, that we shouldn't be swearing on here. So we try not to swear too much, but occasionally you have to because, the world has got so ridiculous. Laura says this, I think it is selfish for doctors to strike. I say this as someone who works in the NHS as a healthcare support worker. Patients come first. In Gloucestershire, we have a what? A phlebotomy strike. What's that? Has it been going on for
Is that like a lobotomy strike?
Phlebotomy? What is that? Hey? Phlebotomy. What's that?
That's connected with your bloods and everything, isn't it? Yeah, I think so.
How can you have a phlebotomy strike, though?
That means that phlebotomists...
They're not processing the blood.
I'm here for the phlebotomy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're on strike.
Yes.
It's unfortunate.
But unfortunately, we're not open at weekends either because
everybody's got
ADHD. However, if you turn up but sometime between 11 minutes past 12 and 14 minutes past 12, we can find out whether we need to cut your leg off.
Yeah, and we'll still charge you to park in the car park, 20 quid. Yes. There you go. Right, Brian Rose is here with us. He is the man from London Real, who's now over in Dubai. Brian, good to see you, man. Very, very good morning to you. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Thanks, Mike. Great to see you. It's been too many years, and congrats on being a YouTuber like me.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Now, the reason I got you on was because I saw you walking around in Dubai, I think on Saturday, explaining what it was actually like and that it wasn't as bad as people were making out. Tell us about what it's been like for the last couple of days and how it is now.
Yeah, so there's always the truth of what's happening and then the media narrative of what's happening. Mainstream media is usually a day or two behind, but then of course you got all the folks on X and social media and all the different videos. Some are current, some are fake. So yeah, I'll tell you what happened. I've been here since, I think it was December 31st, and really saw this coming. I think we all knew when the Gerald Ford kind of hit the location of where it was going next to Israel, it was going to kick off. And then of course it did on Saturday. Woke up to, hearing the strikes had started, and I didn't know what was going to happen. My family had visited me a week ago and I was kind of glad they were gone. But, Mike, we all assumed that the UAE would get a tiny amount of blowback because it's never really been attacked before. If you remember on the last strike 5 months ago, Qatar got a little bit of action, but, it's just kind of this, Switzerland of the Middle East here. And we thought we would be the last to be targeted. Now, it turns out that we got more missiles and drones than every other Gulf country, including Israel, by 5x. And so it all started kicking off around Saturday. And look, let me be clear, Mike, I was in New York City for 9/11. I was in London for 7/7. And of course, during lockdown, we took a lot of heat. So this is not exactly my first rodeo, but I've never had incoming,
Right.
I mean, except for 9/11 when I didn't even know they were over my head. And so that was a new experience. And to watch this technology here that I didn't even know they had shoot things out of the sky. I mean, it's unnerving, but it's also impressive. And so, look, I'm glad my kids weren't here, and I'm glad, it was just me because I can kind of shake it off. But it was definitely spicy for a good 24 hours. I'd say that Saturday night was the most exciting. And that's when you saw, some debris that hit the Palm and hit the Burj Al Arab, et cetera. By Sunday, everything had reopened and was back. And I've had dinner outside every single night. So it's this weird juxtaposition of, yeah, you kind of hear these things going off in the sky, but it's also business as usual here.
Right. So you don't feel particularly in danger. We saw, there was one video we saw of a guy, a British guy who lived on the 19th floor of a building who had a drone come in his window, you know, and luckily he was okay. But I guess if you're worried that you're going to be hit by some random, you know, thing flying through the air and you're in a high-rise building, that must be a bit unnerving, no?
I mean, I think statistically, you're still more likely to get hit by a car crossing the street than a piece of debris, even over here the last couple of days.
Yeah.
You know, I live in a huge high-rise building overlooking the Palm. And at the time when the strikes kicked off, I was at the gym at the 77th floor, you know, in front of floor-to-ceiling glass windows. And I refused to end my workout early. I was like, I'm not doing this. So I've just kind of rolled with it. But, you know, I could see how it could put people on edge. And I think they were definitely for that first 12, 24 hours. You also don't know what's going on. And it's loud and you can't see anything because all these things are being intercepted. And but, you know, now it's been 48 hours, I think almost 60 some hours. Airports are open and the communication has been really good from the central government. If you go to their X feeds, they actually tell you exactly what happened, what was going on. And then, of course, a bunch of the rulers came out yesterday and started walking around the malls. And, you know, it's been a weird experience, Mike. It reminds me a lot of New York City after 9/11. Okay, at first it was shocking, but afterwards you had all these New Yorkers that, you know, previously hated each other coming together. And it was like this weird love fest. And the same thing is happening here. It's like all of a sudden, everybody who's here as an expat is like, loving this place. The Emiratis are shouting out the expats saying, wow, we never figured you would be here promoting this place, supporting this place. And it's kind of strange what's happening, but I feel like it's made us stronger. I don't know if that sounds a little wacky to you, Mike, but that's what it feels like right now.
Okay, Brian, I have a friend of mine, Richard Desmond. He used to own the Express group over here. He owned Channel 5. He owned various things. He left, quite rightly, left the UK because he could to live in Dubai. And he had the same message, actually, when I swapped texts with him yesterday. I've always been puzzled that in the middle of the Middle East, there is a Muslim-dominated area of the world, that Dubai, which would be viewed by some within the Islam community as a kind of Sodom and Gomorrah, has not suffered worse or has not suffered at all, but has been allowed to basically flourish. First of all, people seem to be able to drink there. They seem to be able to do other things there, of which actually in most of the other, I don't know this to be 100% true, most of the other cities of the Middle East. Why do you think that Dubai has been allowed to be such a safe haven against the ISIS kind of dominated thought processes of places like Gaza, for instance? You know, the Hamas, why do they allow it? What's your thought on that?
You know, it's an interesting point because this country is actually younger than I am. You know, it was started in 1971 after I was born. And if you go back and look through the history, you find out that it's really never had a lot of natural resources. Dubai itself actually never really had a lot of oil resources. What they were good at is trading, and they were a trade hub for many centuries with India and the rest. And I think like London and Amsterdam and all these places, when you're a trading hub, you learn maybe not to judge all of your customers, and you learn how to make good business. I think by creating an environment where people can do business. Because I've asked myself the same question. Why Dubai? Why didn't this happen somewhere else? And why do they do it so well here? I think they have a real history of also noticing when they dropped their tariffs on boats, they actually did more business. And so being tolerant, I think, is good for business. Also, not having oil resources forced Dubai to look ahead and say, what are we going to do? We can't lean on these things like a crutch that you could argue maybe Iran has, or maybe some North Africa countries. So they really had to innovate, and they did it by putting it out there and saying, we're going to be the #1 city for tourism, which 20, 30 years ago was preposterous.
Yeah.
So, you know, and again, you say allowed to in the region. I mean, look, the UAE is 7 Emirates. They have a Gulf, you know, a group here, but no one is really telling them what to do. You know, people are asking, why did they get fired at by Iran? Some people are saying that it's because this is the antithesis of what that regime is all about, which is all about control. This is the opposite of control. But the whole region is changing. And I'm told now that if you're a diplomat in Saudi, you can actually go to a state functioning liquor store and actually buy liquor, which is unheard of. So the whole region is changing. Gambling is going to be here in one of the Emirates next year. So there's a lot of change happening, but I feel like this is an example that maybe Iran wanted to kind of fire back on. By the way, we've had no incoming now for probably 12 to 16 hours, and the airports are open. So, look, I'm not saying it's over, but I don't think we're going to see the frequency of drone attacks we saw 3 days ago.
And from the people you speak to there, Brian, and I'm getting this impression, my daughter lives there as well, and she flew back in last night, funnily enough, when I was expecting her not to be able to. Are you saying that people are not going to be frightened by what's happened this weekend, and that they're not going to depart the place, and they're not going to suddenly go, actually, now we can't stay here, we can't live here, it's going to affect the economy and all of that?
You know, I'm seeing these headlines from these British papers talking about the evacuation going on, you know, of the Brits. And I've seen people commenting, they're like, what are you talking about, evacuation? First of all, they had no communication from the UK government. They were told to go to a website and were not told what was going on. Meanwhile, the Emiratis decided to cover all of the hotel bills from anybody that was pushed on and to try to make everybody feel safe and try to protect everybody. You know, I think people were on holiday and wanted to go home, but I don't know of a single expat here that is leaving the UAE after what happened over the last 3 days. And that's, I find fascinating. Now, we're in the property business here, and I'm trying to put feelers out to see what's actually happening. And I just heard from a source of mine about an hour ago that he had a client that came in last week before the action, who was going to buy a luxury villa on Dubai Islands for 91.5 million dirhams, so about 18 million pounds. And he's proceeding with the completion of the deal, even though he could renegotiate, walk away, etc. So, you know, look, you would expect possibly less people to come here, but in the long run, this action on Iran makes the whole place a safer region because you don't have this constant threat over your head. So the jury's still out, Mike, on what this is going to do. And the news cycle is so short, as you know. A week from now, are people going to remember? I don't know, but I'm here to stay. Cool.
Well, listen, let's make this a regular thing. We'll talk to you from time to time, Brian, and good luck with it all. And great to see you. And we'll see you soon. Brian Rose there, reporting live in from Dubai. Fascinating, isn't it? Because I thought when this all started kicking off, Kelvin, that you know, there's going to be a backlash of some kind, you know. And I'd also said I don't think that the Emiratis will let it go on for too long because they don't want their economy affected. You know, they're all about their economy. I remember going to Dubai back in the 90s. You might remember the story. There was a British couple who lived in Sharjah, or two British couples, and the husband of one couple started having an affair with the wife of the other couple, and one of the spouses reported them to the local police. And they both got locked up, got put in prison for adultery, right? So we all went out sort of mob-handed to try and, you know, get them out. And,
do you know what? In Isha, there wouldn't be anybody who wasn't in jail, right?
That's right. It's where Pooch used to live.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why he moved.
Yeah.
I remember waking up one morning and there wasn't much going on, and so I just thought I'll jump in a cab or go. And Dubai was it was in the 90s, right? So it was nothing like the size it is now. And I got in this cab and I said, "Can you take me to the old town?" You know, I thought I'd go and see a souk or something, go and buy some, you know, spices. He went, "What do you mean?" I said, "You know, there was like an old town where it all started." He went, "There is no old town." He says, "We've only been here since 1971." Yeah. And there literally it was a desert. You know, until the 70s.
But he made a good point, didn't he? Which is the point. This is one of the reasons why Israel is so successful, apart from the fact that it has the most brilliant people on earth living there, is that there is no oil, right? Or that there is some oil now in Israel, very little, right? And if the money is coming out of the ground, right? Why do you need? You know, people just don't have to be innovative, right? And I didn't know it was a trading hub. One of the main attractions there, I think, in Dubai is that there's no inheritance tax, is there? And I don't think there's any...
there's no tax of any kind. There's no income tax.
I'm surprised you're not doing your show from there.
It has crossed my mind, to be honest. It's either there or Guernsey.
It's either there or Guernsey. Yes, right. In that case,
but there's also no income tax or corporation tax.
I thought there was 20%.
No, I don't think so. Well, it might be.
I think so.
There's certainly no corporation tax.
Yeah, I think it's the same for. I think it's the same for all of those things. But you're right. So I think we could learn something from Dubai and also from Israel. Right? Yeah. There's no inheritance tax. We should have no inheritance tax over here. You flog yourself to death. And if you want to leave it to your kids, you'd be mad. Yeah. But if you want to leave it to, for instance, supposing you went educated at private school, which are under attack in this country, under Labour, right? They hate the idea of people getting brighter. Yeah. I tell you what we do, we'll impose a tax, so we drive everybody out. Supposing so instead of leaving it all to your kids, why don't you leave some to the school so that it guarantees that no matter which government comes to power, you'll still be able to buy an education that you feel happy with, in the same way as you can buy every other damn thing in life, including your own health. So how is it that the Labour government attacking you morning, noon and night if you're privately educated, but actually are saying, in order to help out the NHS, which is completely useless by and large, right? And now has got a whole load of doctors who either A, are on strike, or B, claiming they've got mental health issues, which means they can't work weekends or nights. Right? Why are they in favour of private on that? Yeah. Where you could say you get a much greater chance of living in life if you go to private health than you go to private education. So there is something fundamentally wrong with this government and the way that they look at things. And what I want to hear, and this is one of the great disasters of Boris Johnson's premiership, and also the people that followed him, they were always trying to accommodate a group of people who can't be accommodated. Yeah. Why do you want to accommodate the far left? They want to see the destruction of the country. Right. So why don't they just simply say, what we're going to do is we believe in freedoms in lots of ways, and freedom of spending your money is the main freedom we want to give you. And we're going to give you this, and you can get on with your life.
But that's what they always did in America. And unfortunately, in this country, they're constantly looking for new ways to tax you. They're finding new things to tax that they didn't used to tax.
Well, you take Rachel Reeves, of course, this is the last hurrah for Rachel Reeves. So I'm sure something will come out of this. So there'll be some bad stuff coming out of this. They will forecast that joblessness will go up, and they will forecast that inflation will probably rise. So the possibility of another interest rate cut seems less likely than it was. That may not necessarily be therefore, but that's certainly going to be. I just wonder whether they'll slip something of a try to make us feel good. Now, a real feel good, she announces she's quitting, right?
That would be good.
In a feel good factor, I am leaving, because when Starmer goes, when the results come in, the results will be cataclysmic for Labour. Cataclysmic. When he announces, I recognise that the country has lost faith in me, right? She has to go as well. Yeah. So it
might be better for her to go before him, you mean, in other words, because it makes her look better.
Look, she can come out and say, look, I've been weeping quietly in the corner. Yeah. But this has been the proudest moment of my life. And hold on a second, this has been said before, this is not the proudest moment of my life, but I'm going. So that would make her spring statement memorable.
It would. Let's urge her to do that. We've actually got a poll before I go to the news and before we talk to Neil Oliver. So I want to get your view on this one, because it's about, we were sort of inspired by Bill and Hillary Clinton yesterday. Yep. Who would be your nightmare partner? Now, Janet Street Porter's not on this list, but Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton,
what about Rupert Murdoch?
Peter Mandelson, or Rachel Reeves, and she's come top. She's the nightmare partner. So people would rather be with Hillary Clinton than Rachel Reeves.
Do you mean to say that there are men that would rather sleep with Peter Mandelson than Rachel Reeves?
I'm not suggesting that only men are answering this poll. I mean, it could be that there are women answering the poll.
Yes, that's a good point.
But certainly I'm quite surprised. I thought Hillary Clinton would top the list, because she is apparently one of the most ghastly individuals that's ever walked the earth.
Why do you say that?
Because I just think she is. I mean, I've met her as well. I interviewed her once. Yeah, I interviewed her once.
And hold on a second. Her polling of you was?
Well, I had to smuggle myself into a school classroom. And when I put my hand up and asked a question, she says, "You're not meant to be here, are you?" Because I've been trying to get an interview for her, for Eve Pollard for the Sunday Express. And Eve kept saying to me, just tell her it's for me, darling. I was like, I'm sorry, Eve, but she doesn't actually know who you are or care when she was editing Sunday Express.
That has never stopped Eve, though.
It hasn't, no, bless her. And so I managed to get myself into this school classroom because I just found out where she was and found my way in. And then she said, well, she said, I'm not answering your question. And she said, you're going to have to leave. I said, well, I'm only going to leave if you agree to talk to me afterwards outside, which she did, you know.
So she was very courteous, because if that had been reversed, right, you had been the Secretary of State of the United States, and there's some ghastly tabloid oik. Yeah, right, I'm going to ask some disgusting question about my love life with Bill Clinton, then you would be totally offensive. No, I think she treated you quite well.
Well, she also had very fat ankles.
Well, that is not a reason not to like somebody.
No, it's not. But I don't like her because she's duplicitous. She is clearly somebody who clung on to her husband despite all of the various peccadillos, including Monica Lewinsky, that he got involved in.
Did you see in the Epstein? You know, he faced that. That he said that he received a back rub.
Yeah.
But in fact, it was a neck rub.
Yes.
Right. But surely,
from the stewardess, was it?
No, this was actually, I think, on the island itself.
Right.
I would have thought that was a very strange thing. And apparently, he got a touch of the shakes while he was, if you'll excuse
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, he got a touch of the shakes while he was answering these questions.
Yeah. Well, he also was asked about the stewardess on the private jet, and they asked him, and I think we've got a clip actually. Should we play the clip, Pooch? I don't know if we can.
Can we get ourselves? He was asked about. I wonder whether we can find ourselves a decent producer.
Yeah. So apparently, he was asked about what the stewardess was wearing. You know, because the stewardess was wearing jeans and a tank top.
Right.
And he was asked, you know, is that normal, you know, attire for a stewardess? And he kind of went, well, I don't really know. Don't know if they're supposed to wear uniforms. You got it? Yeah. Let's have a look.
Oh. I don't know. I mean, I've already told you this. I'll tell it again. I never saw anybody do anything wrong. I thought they were flight attendants.
Do flight attendants typically wear tank tops and jeans?
They don't all wear uniforms on private planes.
Yes, sir. Most are dressed probably pretty business class.
Oh, dear. Well, maybe he's got some kind of neurological problem. Yeah. Anyway, listen, we're running terribly late, Kelvin, apparently. We've got Maggie Oliver and Neil Oliver to talk to, so we're going to go and do that. All the Olivers. Maggie, I'm so sorry. I completely kept you waiting. Sorry, my apologies. Very good morning to you, darling. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Mike. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Very encouraged to see that you're suing the government about the rape gangs. Tell us about that.
Well, we definitely won't make any money from it. It's cost us money as a little charity. The whole reason for it, Mike, is that you know that there was like £200 million, 7 years, and over 7,000 victims spoke to ICSA. Now, I was been very outspoken about my horror at the organised network grooming gang part of the inquiry, but many recommendations, 20 recommendations, came out of ICSA, including things like outlawing pain compliance techniques against children, giving children in care the same rights as children who don't live in care, and collecting data. So there's many other of the recommendations, none of which have been properly implemented in well over 3 years. So we've tried to reason with the government and also the previous government. This is not just the Labour government. The Conservative government also failed to implement these recommendations. The question is, Mike, as we are going into potentially another national statutory inquiry, the question has to be asked: if you have a national inquiry taking years, costing hundreds of millions of pounds, and then successive governments refuse to implement the recommendations, what is the point in having another inquiry? You know, it's morally wrong. So we're trying to challenge the government to take them to a judicial review. Their response to our action has been, first of all, to argue we were out of time. Secondly, to say that we we can't, and nobody can force them to implement any of the recommendations if they don't want to. And they're looking at things in their own time. So on all those issues, we are taking this forward on behalf of every victim and survivor throughout the country of any kind of sexual abuse, to say we need change in this country. And it's shocking that we have to go to this extent. It's taken over a year to get to this point. I'm hoping and praying that the judge who is leading on this case on Thursday can see how wrong this is. This is not playing politics with this subject. It is about child protection for future generations. You know, also things like changing the way that police complaints are handled, having a minister for children in the cabinet. These are basic things. Having people who work in children's home properly registered. Why on earth would a government ignore 20 recommendations that took 7 years to come up with? It just is scandalous. So that's why, you know, my little charity managed to get funding from 2 individuals in order to bring this action. That's wrong in itself. And, you know, if anybody believes in what we're doing and feels like they could donate even £10 to the charity, this is the kind of thing that we are spending that money on. And I think it's quite ironic, really, Mike, that, you know, the government have got access to countless numbers of lawyers and legal brains, and money is no object to them. They are using our money, public money, to fight what I believe is a morally horrific decision, actually.
Yeah, exactly right. Will you be able to get to a courtroom, and will you be able to put ministers on the stand and ask them under oath what they did and what they didn't do?
Well, let me say, first of all, Mike, this is the first time I've ever been involved in any judicial review. On Thursday, I will be in the High Court with our legal team, who have been incredible. It's Howe and Co. and our David Enright and our barrister Chris Jacob are putting our case. This judge, who is he is overseeing this hearing on Thursday, clearly thinks that we are not out of time, as the government tried to argue. He scrutinised this claim for many months before ordering this public hearing on Thursday. The next step will be to go to a full hearing, a full judicial review, if the judge grants in our favour. We can do no more. This is the only legal tool available to allow us to take this forward.
Okay. We're just losing your signal there a little bit. Just finally, Maggie, tell us where people can find the charity to donate to it.
Yeah, it's the Maggie Oliver Foundation. Go online. Sorry, I think my signal's bad, isn't it?
It's just breaking up a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So the Maggie Oliver Foundation, we'll pass that on. We'll put it out there on the old social media front as well. Great woman, Maggie. She really is. She's been fighting this fight for many a year. And wouldn't you love to see some of these bleeding politicians on the stand having to answer under oath to a barrister's questions?
I think that if it ever came to that, suddenly the government would throw their hand in. They can't answer well the grooming gangs questions.
No.
And the reason they won't want to answer them definitely now will be in relation to the Gorton and Denton result.
Yeah.
This will really, and with that polling showing the Greens in second place and Labour 5 points behind, you're probably watching the destruction of the Labour Party. So everybody thought that reform would kill the Tories. Well, more important than reform killing the Tories, what has happened is the Greens look as though they're going to kill Starmer and Co.
Right.
These are big
and he didn't see
moments.
it coming, which is extraordinary in a way. And also, he's trying to react to it by going further to the left.
Yeah.
Which isn't a good idea.
That's to save his own bacon.
Yeah.
He quite rightly, these politicians view themselves as the important ones and that the party as secondary. So he's saying, if I'm going to survive, I'm going further left. And I'm afraid that it's viewers like the Mike Graham show who will be enraged and worry about what is their future like, not only for themselves, they've probably given up on that, but they definitely are worried about their kids and their grandkids.
Yeah, definitely, no question. Kelvin, thanks very much indeed. Let's talk to Neil Oliver, who has been also waiting very patiently. Neil, very good morning to you, sir.
Oh, hi, Mike. Good to see you.
Very good to see you. What do you make of this kind of, I guess you might call it, I don't know, reset? I know that's a terrible word, which politicians like to use, but the whole political landscape appears to be changing before our very eyes, with the Greens on the left and with Reform and Restore Britain and Advance on the right. Is it the end of the Tories and the Labour Party, do you think?
I've long since stopped taking politics seriously in this country or anywhere else. You know, the advent of the term uniparty I thought was very helpful at the time as a sort of a gateway drug, if you like, to understanding what was going on. I think it's irrelevant whether we get offered. I think the electorate get offered things: reform, restore, reclaim, whatever, which are offered up as though something radical is about to happen and that you're going to see the changes that you want made, but they never happen and they never will. I firmly believe that if it's held up in this country and you're allowed to vote for it, then it already doesn't matter. Whoever ends up in Downing Street or whoever ends up with a so-called majority in Westminster, it's all going according to a bigger plan. So whatever, the Greens having a success, it matters not a jot. In the same way that whatever Reform are saying about this issue or that issue, or whatever Restore UK are saying about this issue or that issue, I think it's just bread and circuses for those that care to eat bread and go to the circus.
I mean, is it like they're fighting over? It's like the two bald men fighting over a comb scenario.
I don't even know the extent to which any of it's authentic, really. I'm always prepared to believe that some of the people in it actually believe what they're saying and actually think that what they propose would matter. I'm not saying that everyone in it is absolutely, knowingly lying. I think some people might be authentically believing what they're saying, but it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. There's no democracy in this country. It's absolutely irrelevant who is in Downing Street. It's absolutely irrelevant what the puppets in Westminster are saying to one another as they bay at one another across the aisle. It's just a show.
Yeah, because we were talking earlier, Kelvin, weren't we, about the fact that the sort of collective responsibility thing, where people come out on television and say things that they patently don't believe because they've been told to do so. Where does it all go then?
Well, that's a very good question. I think at the moment, I think the nature of the trouble that we're in as a society and as civilization, it's the first step is to know. I think once you open your mind to the possibility, at least, if not actually the reality, that you've been duped and that we've just been watching a long-running soap. I mean, the analogy of a soap opera is quite good, actually, because people jump in on a soap opera whenever they become aware of it, and they go from that point, whatever episode they come in on, and the way that the characters are being portrayed and the storylines, they jump in on that point. Very few people would bother to go back 5 years, 10 years, 20 years into that soap opera to see what those same characters or others like them were saying private. They don't catch up. And so the bigger reality of the situation is lost on most people. But I think knowing that it's a pantomime, knowing that it's theatre, I think knowing that the people you're offered, the names that you're offered, the faces you're invited to recognise and to take seriously, once you realise that none of those people are to be taken seriously and none of them matter, not as real people, they are just actors. They are unwitting dupes, useful idiots, or conniving collaborators in the plot, whatever it is.
The trouble is, though, but the trouble is they can affect how we live, though, can't they? I mean, they can tax you more, they can tax me more, they can, take my car off me, etc.
Well, those things can happen. Those consequences, you may have your car taken off you. You will end up paying more tax inevitably, but you're invited to hate on Keir Starmer or Boris Johnson or whoever. They're the targets, the Punch and Judies that you're invited to shout at. But whether you vote for those people or don't vote for those people, your car is going to get taken away and your taxes are going to go up. Those people are not. It's like the kid, it's like in, the little steering wheels that get put on the dashboards of cars in the old days that invited a toddler to think it was driving instead of dad or like mum, when in fact nothing's connected to anything. The steering wheel doesn't affect the direction of the car and there's no pedals. That's what voting and the political process and Westminster is in this country. It's a wee plastic steering wheel to invite the people that believe in wee plastic steering wheels to think that they get a turn at steering the car. And all of that action's happening somewhere else, out with your control. So I don't care who's in Downing Street. I don't care who's the leader of this, that, or the other party. Because by definition, if they're being held up as somebody that you can legitimately vote for, then the pedals, the steering wheel does not connect to the wheels.
So who's driving the car then?
Well, it goes so, like I say, beginning to know and contemplating that you've been duped, as I did 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I hold my hands up and say that I was a dupe as well. But I think, where do we go from here? What we're being invited to watch, in the Middle East, it's one of the underlying predicates of that is that you're invited to think that, well, Donald Trump has America's interests at heart, and that Keir Starmer has Britain's interests, and Emmanuel Macron has France's interests, and so on and so on. You're invited to think that these people are representing nation states, that they're adversarial on your behalf. Then once you realise that is not the case, the people that are actually making the decisions have no allegiance to anywhere. They recognise, there are the movers and shakers of the world, whose names and faces largely go overlooked, if it's even possible to discern who they are. They're not making decisions about what's best for America or what's best for here, there, or everywhere. That's a distraction. It's everything around it is distraction. Is he Muslim? Is he Christian? Is he Shia or is he Sunni? Is he of the left or of the right? Is he a man or a woman? Is he gay or straight? All of these things are artificial divisions that are there to, to keep people jumping, and it's all theatrical. I mean, where we go, the events that are unfolding because they're inevitable. What we're seeing unfold with Iran, with Israel, with the activity that's happening in the Middle East at the moment. As I say in the analogy of the soap opera, where people are invited to jump in, and if they've never been paying attention before, this is their episode 1, and they might think that they know what's going on, but the script's being rewritten all the time. That what's happening with Israel attacking Iran, to force America into it at the same time, is part of a foreign policy, or a policy, let's say, that's been unfolding for decades. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu is on record saying that he's been dreaming about the attack on Iran for 40 years, and now it's it's happening. We know from the General Wesley Clark letter that after 9/11, or by the time of 9/11, U.S. foreign policy was to prosecute 7 wars in 5 years, and 6 of those regime-changing wars have already happened in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, and all of the rest of it. And now you're looking at Iran, which is the 7th of 7, and that's unfolding. That's not a new development based on anything that happened yesterday or the day before. It's a long-running policy that's unfolding. The same in Ukraine. People were invited to think that the special military operation by Vladimir Putin, came out of a clear blue sky, when 5 minutes online looking at freely available material showed you that the NATO, having promised not to expand 1 inch into the east, had spent 30 years expanding 1,000 miles into the east. And with the inevitability one day, someday, of a Russian response, looming as the sword of Damocles over all of it. I mean, it's very difficult to give up decades, which most of us had, of trusting, of thinking that the processes that we were invited to take part in mattered, like voting. It's very difficult when you think, oh my God, how many general elections did I turn up for in the rain, in the wind, putting my cross in a box, thinking it would actually affect the unfolding sequence of events. But there you go. Where do we go from here? Well, it's a big question, but it starts with accepting, oh, it wasn't like that at all.
Fascinating. We'll have to talk more about this, but we're running out of time today. But fascinating stuff. Neil, great to see you. We'll get you back on very soon. Neil Oliver. Wow. What do you make of that, Kelvin?
I didn't agree with any of it, actually, funnily enough. I thought that I thought that was a cynical, gloomy, pessimistic analysis of the inability of individuals or groups of individuals to change things. We have an opportunity in 2029 to disprove the Neil Oliver theory and actually to change stuff. Now, I agree that sometimes when you come to power, the inevitability of what the economy looks like, or the inevitability of some war somewhere that you actually, it was always going to happen, but nobody thought it was going to happen, actually can blow you off course. But that is an argument for basically sitting on your hands. It's an anarchist argument, right? Everything must either be torn down or not believed, and I don't buy any of it. I say individuals can change.
Okay. Well, listen, it's a conversation we'll be continuing to have on this show because it's what we do, basically. We talk about things that nobody else does, and it's always interesting to see what people's got different views on. Anyway, Kelvin, thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
Good to see you. Thanks to all of you for... hey? Oh, Pooch is Pooch. Yeah, we've got this great... This is great, actually. We've got to finish... We try and finish up with something slightly less gloomy. This is some dog action.
Why don't we get that guy? Why don't we ask the driving instructor to come on? Because that will be the best.
Yeah, so he doesn't drive it. Yeah, you have to get him early though before he starts.
He can't drive, but he can cycle. But he's coming up from Carmarthenshire. It'll take him a couple of days.
You've got to get him early before he gets on the Terps as well. Anyway, have a look at this. This is Pooch is Pooch.
Oh shit! Out loud on the bed. You no. Yeah. High five. Too slow.
Tucker, why are you sitting like a human?
Just a little clip.
Alright, now lose it.
This is a great one.
Go crazy.
You gonna sit over there now?
It's just so funny. This one I don't get so much.
Why are you mad at me?
This is great, this one. He moves away. The chair.
I said no, ma'am. Tear your butt up.
That's right.
Join up there.
Happened. Look at the. Oh, look at that. Oh. What's wrong?
Why is it quiet? How did you get up there? That is not a place dogs go.
Fantastic. Yep, that's certainly cheered us all up. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed to everyone. Thanks to Kelvin. Thanks to all the other great guests we had. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow at 7 a.m. Sharp. We'll be bringing you then, hopefully, the news that Rachel Reeves has resigned. We can but hope, but we shall see. We'll see you tomorrow. Look out for all the great clips on YouTube. And if you want to join our Substack, of course, it's themikegrahamshow.com, where you'll get a whole bunch of other stuff that nobody else sees either. And we've also, we're going to put a little video out actually for all the Substackers, because we've now managed to find somebody to run it properly for us, because it's been a bit neglected since we kicked off a couple of months ago. But we're now expanding, and the team is going to be watching it. So there we are. We'll see you later on. And in the meantime, do not be a plank.
Remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a plank.